Yeah. What you doing? What you get going to get it? We got a sub. Say Montar says he going to get the North sub. We can get him that one. We got a sub though.
Video's not enabled.
But that's what I figured, because if you look at her papers, there, that's bad.
Well, look at the people.
That's okay, we'll do it till,
And bring them.
I'll just look in. What if I do this?
Hey, George. How you doing?
Yep.
I go out in my car and get.
Good evening. I would like to call to order the July 20th, 2021 Little Rock City Board of Directors meeting. We would like to welcome those that are in attendance as well as those watching at home or streaming online. I understand that City Director Ken Richardson is streaming from online today. We do welcome him. Before we get started and calling the roll, thank you to the members of the community that are here today wearing your mask. I think we all know and understand that we are in the middle of a third wave of the COVID-19 pandemic. UAMS is full. Our area hospitals are reaching capacity. And we need everyone to get the vaccine and do what we can to take protective measures, not only protect ourselves, but to protect our loved ones. And so just want to say thank you as we see everyone masked up tonight. Director Compuris, who leads our COVID-19 task force, any quick comments before we call the roll? From a doctor's perspective?
Yes. We're passing the point of the vaccine being what we need to stop this problem. If you take the Pfizer vaccine, you take it and 3 weeks later you get your next shot. In our meeting yesterday, one of the hospitals noted that in 10 days, the number of admissions to the hospital, and this is a private hospital, doubled. We're well over 1,500 people that are positive today. This is an extraordinarily contagious variant. Well over 95% of the people that are being hospitalized are non-vaccinated. But unfortunately, maybe 10, 15% of the people who are being sickened with this, but usually not hospitalized, are people like us that have been vaccinated. So it is not, if you've had your vaccine, you are not 100% protected, which is unfortunate. And the only way we're going to get through this is the next couple of weeks or the next month or two, is to do what Frank said. Mask up, social distancing, and play like we were a year ago. The problem right now is that none of the 6 hospitals in central Arkansas have capacity. This weekend, one of the large private hospitals in town could only accept 20% of the hospital, 20% of the transfers that were requested to come in. The other big hospital had either 5 or 15 people in the emergency room overnight waiting for other people to be discharged. We've gone through a period of time where there's no such thing as an elective surgery because we've taken a year where those people have been sick and now they're in worse condition than they would have been a year ago. So we know how to take care of people simultaneously. We have the facilities to do it. We don't have the staff. And that's the biggest limiting factor. A year ago, it was masks, ventilators, and that sort of thing. Right now, it's bodies. We don't have travelers, and we've had people that have worked over a year in extraordinary circumstances. So our best way of helping our neighbors and helping our community is mask up, still encourage people who have not had the vaccine to get the vaccine, and we just need to get through this period of time.
Thank you so much, City Director and Dr. Dean Computers, for giving us a healthcare perspective. In short, get the vaccine and mask up. So thank you so much. Madam Clerk, if you would, please call the roll.
Director Hendricks,
Present.
Director Richardson, Director Webb. Here. Director Peck. Here. Director Wright. Director Wyrick. Present. Director Compuris. Director Phillips.
Present.
Director Adcock. Present. Vice Mayor Hines.
Present.
Mayor Scott.
Present. Let me now take this time to recognize City Director Irma Hendricks, who will give our invocation.
Would you bow, please? I wanted to say before I do my prayer is that we talk about COVID, what to do, and the mask, but I never hear anybody talk about God. He is the answer. Let the words of our mouths and the meditation of our hearts be acceptable in His sight. Amen.
Amen. May we all please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Tonight, we have 2 modifications for tonight's agenda. Item M1, which is in addition to the consent agenda for a contract with Bridge to Success Ministry of Intercession for community-based programming. Item M2 is the addition to the agenda concerning a franchise for the use of the city right-of-way at 701 Broadway Street by Chick-fil-A. Is there a motion?
So move.
There's a motion and second by Vice Mayor Hines. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please say nay. Ayes have it. Madam Clerk, if you would, please read the consent agenda. Before we go to that, City Director Webb, you have your hand.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I would like to make sure that item M2 is separate when we get to it.
Yes, Madam Clerk, we will separate item M2, which I think would have been directed to the grouped items.
We don't have any grouped items
So
tonight.
it will be held separate.
Mhm.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
The consent,
You're gonna start ahead. All right, go ahead.
the consent agenda consists of a motion to accept the 2020 audit, a resolution to transfer title of property located at 2001 South Abigail Street from the City of Little Rock, Arkansas to the University District Development Corporation to be used for neighborhood revitalization programs and for the purposes. A resolution to authorize the city manager to enter into a contract with North American Fire Equipment Company Incorporated in amount not to exceed $206,904.30 plus applicable taxes and fees for the purchase of firefighting protective coats and pants for the Little Rock Fire Department and for the purposes, funding from the 3/8 capital improvement sales tax. A resolution to authorize the city manager to enter into a contract with Harris Construction Management Incorporated in amount not to exceed $498,553.20 for Ward 1 sidewalks and for the purposes, funding from the 3/8 capital improvement sales tax and the limited tax general obligation capital improvement bonds. A resolution to authorize the mayor of the city of Little Rock to accept for municipal purposes permanent construction easements, right-of-way dedications, and fee simple acquisitions, to authorize the city manager to acquire temporary construction easement as needed to complete the construction of the Southeast Trail project and for other purposes, funding from the 3/8 capital improvement sales tax and the limited tax general obligation capital improvement bonds. A resolution to authorize the city manager to enter into a contract with Terracon Consultants Incorporated in the amount of $222,128 for the final cover of the landfill cell 4 project redesign and construction quality assurance and for other purposes. A resolution to authorize the city manager to enter into a contract with janitorial doctors in an annual amount of $67,600 plus applicable taxes and fees to provide lawn mowing and grounds maintenance services at the Oakland and Fraternal Historic Cemetery Park and for other purposes. A resolution to authorize the offering of bonds to refund a portion of the city's outstanding sewer refunding revenue bond, Series 2015, and for other purposes. A resolution to authorize the city manager to enter into a contract with Bridge to Success Ministry of Intercession in an amount not to exceed $200,000 for the purchase of providing community-based programming for a one-year period starting July 1st, 2021, as endorsed by the Commission on Children, Youth, and Families, and for the purposes. That concludes the consent agenda.
Move for the adoption of the consent agenda.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please say nay.
Nay. Mayor,
Aye.
I had my hand up. I think I have a question on the Bridge to Success. That model, it puzzles me because I've never seen a curriculum that addresses that age range, 13 to 30. Normally, when you have programming for young people, it's based on age range and/or developmental needs. And that 13 to 30 is really quite puzzling because when I use development programs, the target age was 6 to 12. A gang intervention program was 13 to 19. And our transition to adulthood was 19 to 25. So I'm really puzzled about what are we going to accomplish by moving in this direction. Secondly, this is the most expensive RFP for one set of programming that I've seen since I've been on this board and since I've been involved with youth development and gang intervention programs. So I'm just really curious about what it is we hope to accomplish and what we're basing this whole what research are we basing this target?
I'm gonna call them and tell them to.
You would do what, Irma?
Director Richardson, since we did call a vote and the ayes have it, what I will do is exercise the chairman's privilege, but the vote has passed on the consent agenda and ask that Dana Doucette will come down and give a very brief overview to be helpful.
Yeah, well, thank you, man, because I had my hand raised before we decided to add these. I've never seen
And Dana's Director Doucette just approached the podium.
Great.
Thank you, Mayor, and to the Board of Directors and to Director Richardson. So there are a few things.
Director Richardson, Director Doucette, if you would, please speak into the mic.
Okay, is that better? I'm sorry.
Yes,
It sounds so loud to myself. Thank you, Mayor, and to the Board of Directors and to Director Richardson. So there are few things that I will address to your question, and then we can definitely go a little bit more in depth than in a personal meeting if you would like. But the 13 to 30, what we found is that when it comes to what's happening in our city today, that is the age group that we're finding needs to be targeted is 13 to 30. And you are right, in the past, we did do 13 to 19 and then a different project for the older ages. That is also why we enhanced the amount of it. That's why it's 200,000, so that there is enough to separate the ages. So it's not that they won't be addressed age appropriately, indeed they will. And that was part of the RFP, is to make sure that the activities that are happening with the different age groups are age appropriate. But we also felt that it needed to be comprehensive, because stopping a program at 19 wasn't helping that transition period. And so that is exactly why we went 13 to 30, is so we could pay attention to the continuum across all of those ages. This is also meant to be community-based, so it's not like the YIP programs that were in a building or they were required to come to a location every day. Instead, this is where we're going to the community. We're going out to where the students are, where the young people are, and capturing them that way. So this is meant to be a comprehensive opportunity for us to reach students where they are. The last thing that I would say is that this is not one program. It actually was advertised for it to be two. It's just that one was successful this time around. We actually will be pushing this RFP back out, hopefully by this Friday, so that if there is another organization that is interested in delivering these type of services to the community citywide, so it's not neighborhood-based, this is actually citywide, then they will have another opportunity to apply for these funds, so that we, again, can have a comprehensive approach to what's happening in our city. And this also goes along with what the mayor introduced today in his press release, is that we are trying to look at comprehensive, community-based ways to intervene in what's happening in our city for public safety.
Which is what I think we should do. And thank you for your presentation. And I think the mayor's approach is one of the ways we get at what's happening in our community right now. But what curriculum are we using, and what are we basing this on? There's a couple of things I noted in the RFP where we were wanting them to document contact, street-based contact, interaction with people that they're making contact within the community, which is far from the best way to have crisis-based intervention, because you resemble police officers, you resemble officials who more likely than not, they don't want to talk to. They want to talk to people who establish relationships. And you keep saying citywide, and I understand that. Who's doing the training, and how are we connecting the people that will be hired through these fundings with those communities that we're talking about? Because I think community and knowledge of community and the community knowledge of you is partly the reason why we were successful what we did in the early to mid 90s. And I think neighborhood based is one way to approach it, but citywide is the best way. But what I see in this RFP doesn't necessarily get us to that point that I think we're trying to get to. And not being dismissive of you, anybody else who worked on it, I just think there's a 13 to 30 is a huge gap. And if I'm a street-based intervention specialist, I'm not going to approach a 13-year-old the way I will approach a 29-year-old. I'm not going to have the same staff person do that. And the number of participants we want to engage, I think, is 100. I think that's a large number, which will require a large staff, a very diverse staff to be able to accomplish what it is. And I just don't see us really accomplishing the things that we say we want to do with this type of programming that we advertise. The 13 to 30 age group, the word curriculum, developmentally, people at different stages. There are different needs. They have different ways you engage them, and there are different types of employees that we hire to engage age-appropriate young people. So, and who's going to be responsible for the training of the crisis intervention? Who's going to be responsible for the training on the recruitment and engagement? Who is doing that? I know your staff, you're woefully understaffed, and I'm concerned that we don't have any intermediary do that kind of work and kind of assistance to help get this successful?
So I can address some of that, but there's two things I'd like to say as I address this. The first one is that, as you may remember, first we have to get through the board before we start our final negotiations with the vendor. So we have not finalized our negotiations with the vendor to answer a few of your questions. However, that vendor is here, Mayor, if you want the vendor to address some of the ways that he had in his proposal, that he plans to do some of those things that he addressed.
But I
And
think,
then well, let me just say real quick, part two is that you're correct that I wouldn't expect for my staff to do the training. We would be putting out an RFP for the training, not just for this piece, but for our other providers as well. So we do have a slate of training that we are finalizing now. We've been developing it so that all of our programs can benefit from this outreach to our youth in our city.
Well, we don't have to bring the vendor forward. I know who that person is. I worked with him and his organization for quite a while over the years, dealing with gang involvement, gang activity, and we don't necessarily need to bring him to the podium, because I don't think there's going to be anything he can say or would say that would change my concerns about this approach to addressing what it is we're trying to address with this RFP and this work. I just don't see it. As somebody who's done this work before, I don't think it's plausible that we can do it in this fashion. And I think this, in all fairness, I think this is far different than what the mayor is proposing, without the mayor talking about anything specifically, but just conceptually, Dana, looking at the RFP and looking at how it's written out and how it's drawn out and looking at the expectations and the work that we're hoping to accomplish. 13 to 30, that's a wide age gap. And there's no curriculum that I'm aware of. I'm not the sharpest knife in the box there, but that 13 to 30 curriculum, I would love to see a curriculum that addresses that age range and the things that we're talking about doing here tonight. So as Mayor said, it's past. I just want to go on record and let you guys know I have some serious concerns, not about the vendor, but about the whole approach, the whole concept, the whole RFP and the whole design of the work. That's where my concern lies, with not with Reverend Wilkinson's ability to carry it out or do it, but whether or not this is going to help what it is that we want to address right now. Right now, we seem to have selective concern or selective outreach crime, and it's, to me, Mayor, that's compared to me, I feel like putting a Band-Aid on a gunshot wound. Just this approach, based on research and history and anything I've been a part of over the 20 plus years I've worked with young people.
thank you so much, Director Richardson, and thank you so much, Director Doucette. And Director Richardson, as you know, you're being very helpful on the community violence intervention specialist vision from that, and so you will be engaged in that as you know. Thank you so much. As we move forward, Madam Clerk, if you would, please read item number 9.
A resolution to transfer title of the property located at 7909 Man Road from the city of Little Rock, Arkansas to LaShawanda Adams to be used for neighborhood revitalization programs and for other purposes.
Before we move forward, we have questions from board members. Looks to be 7 for and 1 against. Mr. Shan O'Neill. And before we get started, I see Director Warwick hand.
Thank you, Mayor. Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am. The hand on this screen is a little smaller than before, so I noticed that you had your hand up. I apologize, Ms. O'Neill. Director Warwick.
I would like to hear the comments from the folks. I will tell you, there was a neighborhood meeting that was held a couple of weeks ago. It was not well attended by the neighborhood itself. There were some other neighborhood presidents from Southwest that were there that were in favor of it. The neighborhood took a vote. I got the results of the vote last night. They are saying that they're in support, but I will tell you, that's a large neighborhood and there probably were only 8 or 9 people that actually registered to vote. So I have to rely on the neighborhood president to let me know what she wants to do with that neighborhood. And they have elected to move forward with the location at 7909 Man Road. They do have concerns, but they're willing to let it go forward and see how it works.
Yes, ma'am. Ms. O'Neill?
Good afternoon, Board and Mayor. I stand before you today with a heavy heart.
Ms. O'Neill, could you please bring it closer?
A bit closer.
Yes, ma'am.
I stand before you today with a heavy heart, for I am opposing many in the community that I respect, but I must oppose. I was there at the meeting. I was very disappointed that Ms. Adams was not there and we were forced to speak on a cell phone. She did send a representative. I asked the question of Ms. Adams, why Southwest? And she was honest and said because the land was cheap. Her representative that she brought to the meeting, I asked him, was he aware about the crime, police response time, etc.? He stated that he had not been in Southwest Little Rock for years. That concerned me. I sat there and I listened to people who told me how wonderful Ms. Adams is. And from what I heard, I agree she is a wonderful person. I do commend her for her commitment to troubled children. But then I asked questions. What about the condition of the building? I was given a quote that $50,000 would be enough for completion. I then asked the representative about the children. Would the children be from Southwest Little Rock? Couldn't be guaranteed because they come from DHS. I asked would they attend the Southwest Little Rock High School? Couldn't be guaranteed. I asked would they even be children from the community? And they state they couldn't guarantee that. I went to the meeting with an open mind, but left with some of the same concerns. So what I did was I took a facts over feeling approach, risk versus reward. Group homes come with foreseen risks, runaways, violence in the facility, abuse by the staff, and no matter how secure the facility is or how good the intentions is of the owner, it is the nature of the business. To ensure that I was fair and educated before speaking to you today, I did my research and hit the streets. I met with the Chico neighborhood residents across the street from the association that did agree. I spoke with Southwest business leaders. I spoke with Southwest police. I gave them location and many of them had the same needs. And they said that this is not something that we need, although it is a want. They had the same concerns, high crime in that saturated area, the condition of the deteriorating building, proximity to Lifeline Church campus, the possible store attached with the fence and guard needed for security, liquor stores and bars directly across the street from Man Road to the right and left, over the bridge to Walmart, there's homelessness, prostitution, drug abuse, close proximity to railroad tracks, close proximity to a freeway for easy access. All these things could be avoided, but again, it's just the nature of the business. And also, when you bring troubled kids into a community that is going through the upriver that we are, they are easy to be influenced. I spoke with a Southwest officer who was not even aware of the plans for the group home, and he had the same concerns. I spoke with the pastor at Lifeline. Him and his congregation have the same concerns. Some stats say that kids run away from group homes more than they do from others because of the freedom. Some stats say as much as 1 to 4 kids run away. This could also be added to the fact that the kids won't come from Southwest, attend the school, or be from the community. These are all things that make the kids run away. When I thought about this, I really did say to myself, this is something that could be great, but just not at this location, not in this building, not in that condition. When things happen, Southwest Little Rock gets the black eye, and we have enough at this time. We built $1 million high school down the street, the parks, $200,000 house subdivision. I just don't think a group home at this location goes with the revitalization initiative. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ms. O'Neill. Ms. Ruthie Childs. IT.
Good afternoon, and thank you for this opportunity to speak. My name is Ruthie Childs, and I am for Ms. Adams' program, group home, or whatever she decides to deem it necessary to call. Ms. O'Neill, I did meet her at the last meeting, and I have no ill will toward her, but I have to speak passionately for the simple fact that there's crime everywhere. There's a need for children to be housed and be loved and be cared for everywhere. I met Ms. Adams at the age of 14. I was transitioning from juvenile to foster care, okay? I've been a therapeutic counselor. I've been in therapeutic foster homes. I've been in juvenile, the Centers for Youth and Families. I've been everywhere that a lot of y'all represent today. For the simple fact that Ms. Adams, she nurtured me, she cared for me, she instructed me, and like Ms. O'Neill said, she has a good heart, but we have to put mind over matter, or whatever the term was that she used. My thing is this: I am 41 years old. I aged out of DHS custody at the age of 17. I took on 3 siblings. I raised my 3 sisters. I am now raising 5 daughters of my own. I'm paying it forward. Let's give Ms. Adams a chance. If she can do something with one, if she can do something with one, just imagine what she can do with 12. Now, we realize that she cannot save them all. She can't save them all. But I'm gonna tell you this: at the age of 14, when my mother gave me away and gave me to DHS custody, she gave me away, threw me away like trash. Ms. Adams picked me up, she shined me off, and she put me in the direction that I needed to go. And I'm paying it forward at 41 years old, okay? So I'm just asking everybody, look in your heart, look deep down somewhere, wherever you can find it, muster it up from your feet if you have to. But Ms. Adams, she has a good heart. She cares. And it's one thing that she gave me that juvenile didn't give me, Jonesboro Training School did not give me, Centers for Youth and Families did not give me, my caseworkers from DHS did not give me. The one thing that I took from Ms. Adams, that I keep to me to this day, and I share it with all my girls, all of them, and it's just a simple thing as a hug. Some of these girls don't need nothing but a hug and somebody who gives a care. Give her a chance, whether she fall, rise, or whatever. We need to bag her up, get behind her. Let's be the community that we're talking about. Let's be that. Let's do some stuff. Let's make something happen. And yes, Southwest gets a black eye. And it's up to us to clean that off and put a steak on it, a potato or something. We tired of Southwest getting a black eye. Let's do something different for Southwest. Let's be that community that builds people up instead of tearing them down. And I thank y'all for this opportunity to speak, and God is good.
Ms. LaShonda Adams.
Good evening, Mayor, City Board Directors. My name is LaShonda Adams. I'm the CEO of In Blessed Hands. I'm also a foster parent and 23-year educator of children. I just want to elaborate on the question that was asked to my president of the organization. The question was, well, he was attending the association meeting, and she stated earlier, the question was, why Southwest? My answer to that is, why not Southwest? Why not have something great in the community of Southwest Little Rock? Yes, I do currently stay in West Little Rock, but I've also lived in Southwest. And I also patronize with the businesses there. So when I speak on the Southwest community, I feel that I am a representative of the community as well. In Blessed Hands will be a place where the girls will be able to be proud of, to be a part of. We want these young ladies to be able to have as normal life as possible, although their circumstances. They didn't ask to be a part of the DCFS. Most of them had no choice. For example, I have a 16-year-old at home. Both parents are deceased. No other family members. There were nobody else was able to take them. So therefore, she's a foster child and she's with me. But she's a straight A student. And she will be graduating a year early. The other young lady I have, her mother's on drugs. No other family members are able to get her because of circumstances. She's an A and B student. My point is, these girls should not be stereotyped just because they're in the DCFS system. Most of them, they have no choice. And in Blessed Hands, we'll provide them with the love, the support, the stability, the confidence, the academic support, structure, and all the skills they will need to become successful adults. These young ladies will be able to look back at their life and say, in Blessed Hands, located in Southwest Little Rock, believed in me. They gave me the chance. And because of that, I am now successful. And without that, I wouldn't be who I am today. So I'm saying all that to say, these young ladies deserve a chance. Thank you.
Ms. Pamela Bingham.
Good evening to the Board of Directors, to the Mayor. I stand before you in support of Ms. Adams in Blessed Hand, and as Director Wyrick, I'm sorry, Director Wyrick stated, we all did attend that meeting, and we listened to what Ms. Adams' president had to say. We listened to the concerns of the neighborhood and other people that was in attendance. And one thing I can say, just looking at her proposal, her plans, it is much needed. When you look around in the community, we need people that's willing to take the time and love on people that don't have that support. And I just stand before you today to just state that I am in support of Ms. Adams' program in the community, and I think it would be a great asset. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Melody Floyd.
Good evening, Mayor Scott and the city board members. My name is Melody Floyd, and I am standing today to speak in support of the In Blessed Hands organization. In Blessed Hands is a residential group care facility that will house young ladies between the ages of 12 to 18. These ladies will undergo an extensive screening process before allowing entry into the program, not accepting extreme behavioral concerns. These ladies will be in the care of the Department of Human Services Foster Care Division. In Blessed Hands was not started only because of the great need in the city of Little Rock, but because of the person with the heart that saw the need and the willingness to actually do something about it. Since our last meeting here, we have met with the neighborhood association and answered the questions that they had to us. Now, prior to our first meeting here, we did speak with the pastor of Lifeline Baptist Church, located in close proximity to the building that we are pursuing. We have also reached out to several community leaders. We have reached out to mental health organizations. We reached out to the local school principals, including Superintendent Mike Poor, who has since forwarded our information to Dr. Fields, who governs the Student Services Division and will be the key contact person to enroll these participants into the local schools. Now, one of the main questions that we receive has all been around funding, or how can we pay for this, or how can we pay for that in some type of way. And in my opinion, the question should be, how can we assist in making sure that these young ladies have what they need to face the challenges that has been set before them. But to appease everyone that has this question, we have secured a donor. We have submitted grants and are awaiting approval. We also plan to have various fundraising events, and you are also welcome to come and be a part of those. The building will undergo renovations as needed to bring it up to standards set forth by the city, the Division of Children and Family Services, the Department of Human Services, and its entities. We already have consulted with a contractor who has agreed to take on this project. We have various security measures in place, not only to ensure the safety of the girls, but to ensure the safety of the community as well. Our primary goal is to kind of bring a sense of normality to the lives of these young ladies while they await either placement with a loving family or to be reunited with their own. These young ladies will receive a progressive series of high quality activities while learning through experiences that help them achieve social, emotional, spiritual, and physical well-being. We will do this by employing highly qualified individuals and outsourcing specialists as needed. Lastly, to address the question of why Southwest, why not Southwest? These services already exist in other parts of our city. So why not be that pillar, that staple, that network that encompasses all that we are to assist an organization that works towards giving a hand up to someone that needs it, which in return will make a long-lasting impact on the lives of our young girls. And always remember that no one cares about how much you know until they know about how much you care. And in blessed hands, we care.
Ms. Jackie Dismute.
Good afternoon, Mayor and City Directors. I agree with Ms. LaShonda. This neighborhood needs this. Kind of like the Hope Center program. Women, young women.
Ms. Jackie, if you would speak into the mic.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Her program would be similar to some things that Director Adcock did with the Hope Center. So these young ladies need the pillar of stronger women to be behind them to help them go along the way and teach them better, because they are coming out of a system, they're in the streets with no knowledge, no guidance. But Ms. LaShonda and her team, they want to give back. And again, why not Southwest? And I'm in agreement.
Ms. Valerie Tatum.
Thank you to the mayor and the board members. I am honored to be standing here tonight on behalf of In Blessed Hands, and I've had the opportunity to actually meet with LaShonda not 3 times, not 4 times, not 5, but about 12 to 15 times that I've had conversations with her. And I don't know Ms. Adams, but I do understand the push until something happens. I've had the honor of interacting with her in 3 professional settings with her board. And it's not necessarily a group home. She is really pushing the group care facility. I stand in support of a program. She has been strengthening her team through conversations and dialogue around community engagement, partnerships, and guiding those conversations through explaining the overall program in details. about the young ladies being mild, and moderately, with moderate behavior. So I think we need to really understand that and lean in on being mild to moderate behavior, students. She has been quite clear about the details regarding maintenance, construction, renovation. She has also ascertained the individuals to take care of the building. She has been working with DHS and all of those different things. So I am in support of In Blessed Hands and LaShonda Adams' work. Thank you.
Mrs. Lita Anthony.
Good evening, Mayor and members of the Board of Directors. Last time this subject matter came up, I came up as part of the Land Bank Commission that I guess started this issue. And tonight I'm back because when we left, we had just as many questions as we did when we came in. So our questions tonight is, when is the process the process? When is the rules, and who do they apply to? In this instance, we got this application back in November 2020. And because it had to be accompanied with a checklist of items in order for it to receive consideration from the board, and it did not pass the muster. This, which was Lifeline Baptist Church's application, was soundly rejected by the Board of Commissioners during process. There was no activity on this property from November to May. Had Director Wyrick and Director Adcock felt that the church should be entitled to the property, the board has a process that they could have involved themselves in, either through resolution or ordinance, to make sure that Lifeline Church got the property. In May, this application came in. This application passed all of the checklists, was accompanied with a large sum of money to purchase the property, not requesting a giveaway, as this property request had been asking, and answered all the questions that the commissioners had. We unanimously accepted this application. There was nothing in our procedure that requires any applicant to pass the muster of a neighborhood group. We are now revisiting that because we want to be clear that the procedures are clear to everyone, what is required in accompanying, in applying to the Land Bank Commission. The significant thing about both of these applications is both of them have to do with youth programs. Either Lifeline Baptist Church is going to be running a youth program on that property, or Miss LaWanda Adams is going to be running a youth program on that property. So again, for the help to the Land Bank Commission, when is the process the process? When are the rules, and who do they apply to?
Thank you so much, Ms. Anthony. Director Richardson. Raise your hand. Your hand's not up.
No, but I do want to comment on the need for us to have programming, regardless of where it's located, where it's needed, not just where it's wanted. And I think we need to recognize that as we make an assessment of our community and looking at the pluses and the minuses, I think we need to consider where programming is needed, not where it's wanted. And it's need-based, not want-based, because it was based on where it was wanted. I would want one in my backyard, but it's not needed in my backyard. We have areas of our city that have real serious problems, real serious needs, and we have an opportunity to help address those needs. And I would just encourage them to extend their age range from 13, 14 to whatever it was, 13 to 30, and then we got another RFP coming up where they can get some money to help if they extend the age range for foster care from 14 to 18 to 13 to 30. There's a pot of money that's sitting aside that's about to come out via another RFP. But I just think we need to be honest with ourselves and be real about the needs of this city and how do we address those needs. And it's one thing to do things to say, just to say we're doing them, even if they're not effective. I think that's disingenuous. But I think where people are trying to make a difference and trying to have an impact in our community, we owe them our support via policies, via resources to help improve whether it's Southwest Little Rock, Northwest Little Rock, Midwest Little Rock, South End Little Rock. The location is irrelevant to me. To me, the issue is the need and the support and the programming that we can help provide for people who need some supportive services. There are far too many disconnected and marginalized children, youth, and families in our city right now that are responsible for some of the social ills that are plaguing our community right now that we consistently say we're concerned about. We say public safety is our number one priority, but when we start in details and start talking about a little bit more specific beyond more police, we kind of get quiet or get selectively silent on how do we address it. And we can't police our way out of some of the things that we're going through. That they provide these supports early on can help provide a stable atmosphere or a stable environment for young people to help become positive, productive citizens of our community. And I'm sorry, man, somebody had a hand up, but I'll put it down now.
I'll mislook at it next time. Thank you.
No, you do that time anyway.
Director Adcock.
Yes, I would like to address two items that have been said. Lifeline Baptist Church did apply for this. It was not for a youth program. It was to expand Road Changers, which is the organization that comes to Little Rock each year and paints and repairs homes. They wanted to make it into a city mission where it would have 12 months out of the year of young people coming to Little Rock to paint and fix up our homes. Kevin Howard, who is the head of our housing department, as well as Mr. Douglas, who works with Road Changers, looked at this property and both of them said this property could not be repaired. The cost would be more than building a new facility. Also, the Hope Center was mentioned. The Hope Center was never residential. I had it for 14 years. It was all adults with children, and it was only a day program. I will be voting no on this because, like Mrs. O'Neill, I do not think this is the place for this facility. It is across the street from the railroad tracks. It is about 2 blocks from a reentry program, and it has a large homeless population within 1 block of it. Thank you.
Director Computers.
Thank you, Mayor. Can Mr. Collins come up, please?
Director Collins.
Yes,
sir. Available.
I can't.
He's available.
We're going to have to figure out something because I can't see the speakers.
But yeah, he's waiting on you to ask a question.
Okay. Jamie, let me ask you a couple questions. Tell me about this building and tell me how much money has been actually procured to do the renovation. If the building is actually 16,240 square feet, and one of the speakers mentioned that there's $50,000 to fix it up. Number one, is the $50,000 been procured? And secondly, can you fix this building up for $3 a square foot?
Director Capirs, in general, to rehab a building in its entirety, it depends on the age of the building. some of the interior damage and also what you cannot see necessarily that may be behind the wall once you start opening it up. In general, we put rehabbing an older building at about somewhere between around $75 to $100 a square foot if we have went in and we have inspected the building in its entirety. This building has not been inspected by the building division in its entirety. We know it's an older building. We do know that it is in need of rehabilitation. The extent of that is determined when the plans for that rehabilitation is submitted. Director Howard did visit the site and did come up with a number off of their general numbers of what they saw when they inspect the interior of the property. And so anything more than that, I would have to defer to Director Howard.
Well, there is something wrong about, my second part of the question is, how much money is actually in hand to do this? It is, Ken's right, this is a worthy process and project to help people and rehabilitate them and get them back on their feet. But I have a hard time taking a building that's 16,000 square feet and saying that we're going to give it to someone to do it. I mean, I feel like Brad Kazort. Show me the money. Show me you can do it. Tell me how you're going to do it. But I can't see how a 16,000 square foot building can even start to be renovated that's empty and not in good condition for $50,000.
I want to speak.
Any more questions, Director?
Well, I mean, how much money is in hand? What's that?
Kevin Howard.
Well, can someone tell us how much money they really have to do this?
Director Howard is out of the office today. Ms. Ruby Dean.
No. I want to speak.
Mayor, I mean, I think this is a worthy project and I think it's a good thing to do, but I think we're fiduciaries of this. Is that not right? This is, we're the fiduciaries of this building.
And we are fiduciaries of this building.
But to give it to someone that we don't know have the money to do it and that we know it's an abandoned building and.
Just 1 second, Director Computers. You are correct. We are the fiduciary responsibility of this. It's gone through the appropriate protocol, through the board process, through the land bank process, through the planning process, and the housing neighborhood program process, and it's passed all those processes. And so it's now up to the board to say yes or nay, but it has gone through all the appropriate policies and procedures to get to this level.
Yes, sir, but my point is, the last step is we're going to convey a building to someone to do something with that has a purpose. And I don't see that the funds are available to perform that function. And if we don't do that.
Director Computers, what I would say, every process goes through the same process. Before we make a comment like that, because we do not normally request, after going through the process of the appropriateness of having the funds available, it wouldn't gotten far through this process if it did not, based on what we know, because our staff did look at it. So it's gone through all the appropriate procedures. And if there was supposed to be something that happened negatively, we do have an opportunity from a staff perspective to halt anything and to take it back into receivership.
Well, then I think we need to re-examine our process to give anybody a building and state that we're going to do something without knowing that there's funds available to do it.
They do know that there's funds available based on what was going through the process. It went through the land bank process. They have to give a lot of Ms. Ruby, will you explain what processes went through this process?
Yes, sir.
I hate to use that word process so many times.
Good evening, Mayor Scott, Board of Directors. The process is the applicant submits the application along with their financial statements, that they have the funds available in the bank. And this process, allow them 2 to 3 years to complete that process of constructing the building. So Ms. Adams has passed the process with the commissioners. and is now before the Board of Directors. We want to treat her the same as we do all of our applicants, and we do not,
We get on
the
the
same
slippery slope.
process.
We get on slippery slope, Director. I just want to.
The same checklist, the same process that we treat all of our applicants. And we allow them 2 to 3 years to complete the process. The closing process takes about 30 to 40 days, and the funds should be available at closing.
Thank you, Ms. Rubinstein. Director Pearson, did you have more questions?
I think that there's sometime we need to talk about the process because this is a big building.
And Director Pierce, I would say, I understand that. This process has been revised many different times and it's gone before this city board. And we can look at that at our next policy meeting when Director Howard's here.
I think that is, but based on what I'm hearing tonight, for this size building, I think this is
And I'm sorry.
we're not exercising our fiduciary responsibilities on doing this. The idea is the correct idea. I'm just not sure the process is right, and I can't support something like that. So
And I think within your role, you have that prerogative, but want to share, every time that we have a land bank commission process that comes before the city board, it went through the same process that Ms. Adams has gone through and have to show a financial statement. So we don't want to get in the business of picking and choosing which ones to take a look at. If we do that, we have to look at them all, and quite frankly, may have to go back and look at some others. And so we don't want to get in this kind of arbitrary position because that will create some harmness, if that's even a word. It's not a word, but it'll create harm as we come from a legal standpoint. Thank you, the other attorney here. Director Hendricks. Director Hendricks, you can speak.
Thank you. The only thing that I want to say is that I like what I hear. In fact, what I've heard, and I just would hope that this board would vote positive for the group. And I think that this city has given away enough money to people who were able to do what they wanted to do. So therefore, I am certainly supporting this group and hope that one day we can find money to even purchase a building. Thank you.
All right, Director Wright.
Mayor, having been a general contractor for 8 years, I understand the process that our housing department goes through and the software that they use to make their estimates. And it typically comes in on the high side, I can tell you that. But not only was I a general contractor for 8 years, I was married to one. I worked on jobs with him, and the condition of the interior of the building can be done for $50,000 depending on the specs. And if our housing department software says that it can be, as I said, I'm familiar with their software, and it typically gives you a very high cost to renovate. Now, I wasn't going to say anything, but I just think that we need to, if they had not told me that the housing department had went out and did their review and provided their estimate, then I would think your concerns would be valid. But given the fact that I know personally that software gives you a high price to renovate anything. Matter of fact, I've heard complaints over the years on this board from people who have said we can do it for this, but the housing staff price said, no, you can't, it's going to cost this. So if they're saying 50,000, then I believe that it can be done for that. But long story short is they've gone through the process, and I, for one, don't want to sit up here and go back through all the others that we've done on this checklist. So if we want to change something, let's move forward. But I don't think this applicant should be penalized. Thank you.
Can we vote?
Director Wyrick. You're unmute, Director Wyrick.
Okay, I just did. Thank you. Wanted to clear up a few things. my driving force for looking at this project and pulling it down was not because of Lifeline Baptist Church or Jeff Dial. It was because of West Baseline Neighborhood Association. They contacted me and wanted to know more about this application. We actually had a lady that was on a Zoom call in January, early February, presenting her application to us. And it was not a group home, but it was a location for training for girls in the construction arena. And so that went away. We didn't hear anything about it. And then the next thing we know, this application comes up again. So the neighborhood is confused. We're all confused about what the situation is. And so they wanted to be able to speak to the applicant. This situation is different, I believe, than any other land bank application that we've had, in that it's a change of use of property. The property was used for small businesses, barbershop, different things like that, and now it's turning into a group home. In my opinion, the land bank needs to revise their process and have a notification in effect for neighborhoods to understand if it's a change in use. Now, do I think every land bank application should go through that? No, I don't. But if it's a change in use, then I think that the neighborhood should have an opportunity to listen to the applicant and to understand what's going in, which we did. We had a meeting. The neighborhood meeting was not well attended. There were not a lot of responses from the neighborhood in regards to the application, but the ones that responded said yes. I spoke with Jeff Dial today, who is the pastor at Lifeline Baptist, and he says they don't need the building. It was just one that came up, and they would be interested in it and advancing their program that they have going. So my driver to this application to look into it again was not Lifeline Baptist. It was strictly the Neighborhood Association. And the other thing I want to bring up is that I did have a conversation with Kevin Howard. At one point, I was told that the building needed to be demolished. And Kevin indicated, no, it didn't need to be demolished, but there is extensive work that needs to be done in the building. He did not give me a cost for it. So that is a concern as to, are we going to have enough money to make this building work? The neighborhood, like I said, the neighborhood met. And what I got from the neighborhood was a yes, even though there were only 4 neighborhood folks that were there. And I probably had 8 people that responded from the survey. That's the information that I have from the neighborhood. The other thing I want to point out is, it's, as Dean talked about, the city board is the final approval for these. And I understand that the land bank went through their process, vetted all of the issues that they're supposed to do. There were enough questions in my mind, potentially 2 applicants that I knew about, and the fact that it was a change in use from small business such as barbershops and other small things like that to a group home. I felt that that was the reason why I wanted to pull it down and look at it. So I just wanted to share that with you. My driver was not Lifeline Baptist, as was indicated. It was the neighborhood association that came to me and said they had concerns.
Thank you, Director Phillips, and I think we'll be ready to call for the vote.
Thank you, Mayor. And I just want to say to the applicant, I will be voting in favor of this for a couple of reasons. I want to share why. One, as was mentioned, there was a process that was followed. Me as a liaison to the land bank, I was at those meetings and saw the process happen firsthand. And to my colleague's point, whether we need to revise the process, that's fine. And maybe that needs to happen as it relates to notification to neighborhoods as it relates to our understanding of financial standing. But as it stands now, this applicant followed the process, and we should not hold her up or hold up this program because we want to, change or improve the process down the road. Which I also should mention to our colleagues that the Land Bank has already created a committee to look at the process going forward. But as we stand today, this applicant did what she needed to do, and her application should be accepted, in my opinion. I also want to say, generally speaking, I get the concern about the location, but we need these services. And I understand people don't want them in certain neighborhoods all the time, but services are needed. And this is one of them. And I don't want us to use the argument on this or any other issue. Well, we don't want it here, we want it somewhere else. Well, the people somewhere else gonna say they don't want it here. We want it somewhere else. So then where do we put the program if no one wants it anywhere? It's our decision, it's our responsibility to make decisions on these issues. And I'm ready to make that decision and vote in favor of this application. So I will call the question, Mayor.
Is there a motion to approve the resolution?
Yes.
So move.
So move.
Second.
Okay.
There's a motion from Director Phillips and a second from Director Richardson. All those in favor, please say aye.
Second by Director.
All those opposed, please say nay.
Nay.
Ayes
Roll
have it.
call.
Roll call.
A correction. Second by Director Hendricks. I heard Ken say nothing.
Yes, ma'am. Madam Clerk.
I don't play, y'all know that.
Director Richardson,
Yay.
Director Webb,
Yes.
Director Peck,
Yes.
Director Wright, Director Wyrick,
No.
Director Compuris. No. Director Phillips,
Yes.
Director Adcock,
No.
Director Hendricks,
Yes, 100 times.
Vice Mayor Hines.
Present.
Ayes have it. Madam Clerk, if you would, please read item number M2 for the first time.
Your last time coming.
Mayor, item 10 is a public hearing. Do you want to go back and grab?
I said
item-
M2, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. I thought you said 10. My apologies.
M2. Yes, ma'am. We got you. Okay.
An ordinance to grant a franchise for the use of city right-of-way for the placement of sidewalks, curbs, drive-through lanes, paving, and customer ingress and egress over the franchise area for the exclusive use of Chick-fil-A located at 701 Broadway Street to require the creation of a passageway consistent with the American with Disabilities Act and acceptable to the city as part of the franchise agreement, to accept the other terms and condition of this franchise for the franchisee and the adjacent property owners, to declare an emergency and for the purposes first reading.
We suspend the rules and place on second reading.
Second.
There's a motion and second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please say nay. Ayes have it. Second reading.
An ordinance to grant a franchise for the use of the city right-of-way for the placement of sidewalks, curbs, and drive-through lanes, paving, and customer ingress and egress over the franchise area for the exclusive use of Chick-fil-A located at 701 Broadway Street, to require the creation of a passageway consistent with the American with Disabilities Act and acceptable to the city as part of the franchise agreement, to accept the other terms and conditions of the franchise for the franchisee and the adjacent property owners, to declare an emergency. Second reading.
We suspend the rules and place on third and final reading.
Second.
There's a motion and second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please say nay. Ayes have it. Third reading.
An ordinance to grant a franchise for the use of city right-of-way for the placement of sidewalks, curbs, drive-through lanes, paving, and customer ingress egress over the franchise area for the exclusive use of Chick-fil-A located at 701 Broadway Street, to require the creation of a passageway consistent with the American with Disabilities Act and acceptable to the city as part of the franchise agreement, to accept the terms and conditions of the franchise for the franchisee and the adjacent property owners, to declare an emergency. Third and final reading.
Mayor.
We've now had three readings. Attorney Pugh,
It's about the emergency clause.
yes.
Members of the board, typically there are not emergency clauses on franchise ordinances. For one reason, the ordinance has to be on public display for 10 days before it takes effect anyway. However, in this instance, this franchise agreement they want to go ahead and start work. So your emergency clause will allow that at their risk. If something should happen to set aside the franchise, then it's at their risk. But that's why you've got one on this franchise.
Thank you so much. Director Webb?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to ask Mr. Collins a couple of questions, please, about this.
Yes. Director Collins?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, Mr. Collins. And I'll preface this by saying, while this is obviously not in Ward 3, it is in an area that is important to our city and that I'm very familiar with because it's where I've spent a lot of time. It's near my church and it's very near the CDC, which our church has operated for decades in this neighborhood, serving thousands and thousands of children in this city. So I have two specific questions about this and then a couple of comments. It's my understanding, or can you tell me about the traffic study that was done and the increased amount of traffic that we expect to see based on the fact that this is an expansion of what has been there?
Currently, right now, I do not have a traffic study in my possession. That is a requirement for release of the building permit. We did have initial conversations with them and Public Works and Traffic Engineering regarding the layout. That's while on that site plan is shown, there's an exhibit. There is one access off of Broadway and just one on a block away to the east. I do know that the DOT has reviewed the access and has released the driveway permit for Broadway. So the concern of a traffic study was to help support the stacking that was going to be proposed at the Chick-fil-A to come around from the south side and curve back around to the north side, and then how that access is leaving the site.
Can you tell me about the landscaping plans for this?
The landscaping plans has went to as far as the buffers, and zoning has went to both the BOA for variance and has been approved. And so the rest of the landscaping material will be done pursuant to our codes.
It was my understanding that the landscaping plans that were submitted did not meet minimum landscaping requirements. Is that inaccurate?
As far as the number or the width that you're speaking of?
I was just told that they did not meet the landscaping standards. I apologize. I don't know if it's the number or.
Well, I do know that there is a zoning buffer upper landscape that did go to the Board of Adjustments for a variance request and was approved. Now, as far as a reduction in material and all that aspect, that has not gone before the City Beautiful Commission for that aspect. So that I cannot speak of. That's why I said that the rest of it is to be done pursuant to our city codes for landscaping.
Thank you, Mr. Collins. And can I follow that up just with a comment, please?
Yes, if you would speak into the mic, there, we're getting some feedback.
Thank you. I live very near the location on West Markham Street, which is a very dangerous location. And I see multiple accidents at that location. This is an incredibly busy intersection already. They're taking up additional space. There used to be an off-duty police officer who directed traffic at the Markham location who's not there anymore. There are hundreds of children who get dropped off every day at the CDC, and I realize it's probably a Don Quixote type vote, but I will oppose this measure. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Mr. Stephen Giles?
Thank you, Mayor Scott, members of the board, Director Webb. we have met with CDC, the board, their board of trustees several times. And we've negotiated with them on the safety of the children at CDC and the ingress and egress from this project. And we got a letter from Mr. Workman, who was the chairman of that board, saying that they now agree with our plan, traffic plan coming out on Spring Street. And that, I think we've submitted that to the city staff. I'm not sure yet, but we do not have any objection from them.
Director Webb?
Well, I spoke to board members and I spoke to the senior pastor today, and I know that there are some negotiations for the number of parking spots that the CDC is going to lose. I was not told in any of the discussions I had today with members of the church or the board that it was approved by church.
Yes, ma'am.
Director Webb, my client Chick-fil-A has agreed to pay the CDC for the loss of those parking spaces and restripe it in accordance to make it safe coming on off of Spring Street or Broadway.
Director Hines, Vice Mayor Hines.
No comment, Mayor.
Get your hand. Director Richardson, do you have your hand up? Just want to make sure.
No, that was a minute ago. It's back down.
All right. We've now had 3 readings and have heard public comment. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 All those opposed, please say nay.
No.
Ayes have it. There a roll call?
No, I just,
Ayes have it. All those in favor for the emergency clause?
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please say nay.
Nay.
Ayes have it. Madam Clerk, if you would please read item number 10.
a resolution to approve the issuance of the Arizona Industrial Development Authority Charter School revenue bonds and for the purposes.
Move suspend the rules and place on second reading.
Resolution.
The resolution.
Resolution. Move for the adoption of the resolution.
Second.
There's a motion second. All those in favor, please say aye.
It's a public hearing. We got to open and close it.
That's right. Sorry about that. We now have the public hearing open. Any comment? Any need for comment? Any comment? This public hearing is now closed. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please say nay. Ayes have it. Madam Clerk, if you would, please read item number 11.
An ordinance to abandon that portion of the West 11th Street right-of-way located between South Monroe Street and Jonesboro Drive in the city of Little Rock, Arkansas, and for the purposes first reading.
Move suspend the rules and put on second reading.
Second.
There's a motion second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please say nay. Ayes have it. Second reading.
An ordinance to approve that portion of the West 11th Street right-of-way located between South Monroe Street and Jonesboro Drive in the city of Little Rock, Arkansas, second reading.
And the rules in place on third and final reading.
Second.
There's a motion second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please say nay. Ayes have it. Third reading.
An ordinance to abandon that portion of the West 11th Street right-of-way located between South Monroe Street and Jonesboro Drive in the city of Little Rock, Arkansas, third and final reading.
Correct. Thank you. We've now had 3 hearings. The hearing was open. The hearing is, any comment on that hearing? Any comment on the hearing? Any comment on the hearing? Hearing is closed. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please say nay. Ayes have it. Madam Clerk, if you would, please read item number 12.
An ordinance to approve a plan zoning development, establish a planned commercial district titled Park Avenue LLC, PCD, located at 7820 Cantrell Road, Little Rock, Arkansas, amending the official zoning map of the city of Little Rock, Arkansas, and for the purposes, first reading.
Move suspend the rules and place on second reading.
Second.
There's a motion second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please say nay. Ayes have it. Second reading.
An ordinance to approve a plan zoning development, establish a planned commercial district titled Bark Avenue LLC, PCD, located at 7820 Cantrell Road, second reading.
Suspend the rules and place on third and final reading.
Second.
There's a motion second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please say nay. Ayes have it, third reading.
An ordinance to approve a
Second.
plan zoning and development and establish a planned commercial district titled Bark Avenue LLC, PCD, located at 7820 Cantrell Road, third and final reading.
We've now had 3 readings. We'll go with the community. Brandon Bradley. Brandon Bradley.
I'm not Brandon Bradley, but as the applicant, would like to go first if that's possible.
Ms. Ellis, we've already started by announcing Mr. Bradley, but we will get to you. Mr. Bradley?
Can we defer to them to go first?
I asked, you can, but then I may not come back to you.
Oh, well, can't risk that. All right, my name is Brandon Bradley. I live on Renard Court in the Foxcroft neighborhood, directly downhill from the proposed site. First, I'd like to thank the mayor and the city board of directors for the opportunity to discuss why to deny this special use permit. So what the city is considering today is giving an exception to an individual business that will contain an outdoor dog play area that could have as many as 50 dogs outside at one time. Each dog can create a decibel of a noise, and if you add 25 or 50 dogs collectively, they can create decibels up to 120. That is comparable to a fire truck siren. So imagine a fire truck sitting at this proposed site with its siren going and the difficulty that it's going to be to minimize the sound impact to the surrounding neighborhood. So what you're considering is allowing a business that we all know is going to generate a lot of noise to be built in an area surrounded by condominiums, apartments, houses, hundreds of residents. By far the most extreme setting of one of these dog daycares yet. Nothing like the other dog daycares that have gone up in the city. Again, by far the most densely populated area yet. A recipe for a disaster. Now, I'm sure the applicant is going to do their very best to minimize the sound, but common sense says you can't stop that sound, that type, or that level of noise. How in the world do you soundproof a 3,600 square foot outdoor area that has no roof, that has the potential to generate the sound of a fire truck siren? The applicant herself, back on the Planning Commission meeting on March 11th, stated these businesses are very loud. She said it herself. We all know that. That's not in dispute here. Now, the question is, what are they going to do to minimize the impact? And if you look at their sound engineer's report, Wayne Ritchie's report, he talks about putting up wooden fences. He talks about absorbent panels. He talks about AstroTurf. All those things sound great. But again, this is an open area. There is no roof. There is nothing to stop the sound from moving up and out. And if you read the report, you'll notice some interesting things. One of the things that you'll notice is that he does some test studies in there. He goes in and he plays noise that's supposed to replicate the sound of dogs inside and outside the building. And then he goes around to various spots and he measures the impact or the sound. But you'll notice in his report that there's no decimals reported. There's no hard facts. And also in that report, on page 3, he states his opinion, and it's in bold text, and it reads, and I'm reading exactly from the report. Based on the results listed above and my recommendations for internal and external change/modifications, it is my professional opinion that the proposed use of this facility for pet grooming and boarding will not harm the peaceful and quiet enjoyment of any neighboring property. But if you've noticed something, there's something omitted there. He mentions pet grooming and boarding, both internal services to this building. Nothing about the outdoor dog play area, which is by far the biggest issue here and the noisemaker. It's just curious on why that service was omitted from that statement. So what happens if the sound engineer gets in there and his efforts fall short? He cannot reduce the noise to an acceptable level for the neighborhood. The real question is, what is even an acceptable level of noise? There's been no agreement between the parties on what that is. There's no city guidance or ordinance around the sound levels coming from these businesses, these doggy daycares. There is nothing in place with the city to hold them accountable to deliver on these promises of reducing the noise coming from this facility. And when the neighborhood asked, what tools do we have to enforce the sound noise promises that they're making? We were told, and this was a response sent from Thomas Carpenter and Tracy Rourke from the city attorney's office. And I'm reading this directly from an email received from them on May 20th, 2021. If a dog is disturbing the peace, anyone has the right to file a complaint. We will send a notice, but during this time, if the problem continues, the complainant will need to start recording the nuisance since we are not a witness to the barking, and the recordings will need to be provided as evidence to the city's attorney's office. We ask that once the complaint has been filed to give us 2 weeks to see if the improvement is made. If not, or the barking returns, another complaint can be made and repeat 2 weeks again. On the third time, we will send out a third notice and forward the notices and complaints to the city's attorney's office for them to send out a final warning letter. If all fails, the city's office will look at the evidence, including the recordings, and determine if enough evidence warrants an affidavit to be signed by the complainant and to have the owner served to appear in court. The complainant will then need to be prepared to testify on the recordings. Now, this is an enforcement written for a citizen with a large, loud barking dog in their backyard. This is not around one of these doggy daycares. So again, there is nothing in place around sound enforcement for these type of businesses that are starting to pop up all over the city. So think about what you're considering. You're overriding a city requirement to allow a business to open what we all know can be extremely loud, surrounded closely by a heavy populated neighborhood, the most extreme setting of one of these yet. And then you're going to put the burden of sound enforcement back on the neighborhood to record these and send it to city's attorney's office? Think of it this way. The neighbors are going to overwhelm the animal service department. They're going to send complaints to the city's attorney office. Don't you think it would be a good idea to empower the city attorney's office with some clear codes about the level of noise that these businesses are allowed to permit? For the city's attorney office to tell these citizens, we will send someone out to measure the sound with a decimal reading. And whatever the codes may be, whether that's 35 decimals within 100 feet or 20 decimals within 200 feet. And if the business is, or the doggy daycare is not generating that sound, then the city attorney office now has something to go back to the complainant and say they are in code. And on the flip side of that, with these kind of codes that aren't in place, now you have something to hold these businesses accountable, to hold the doggy daycare or the bark park or whoever's going to open one of these, because the more of them are coming, to be able to say, we now have codes to enforce the sound that these businesses generate. Eventually, one of these doggy daycare parks is going to end up in a big mess that no one knows how to fix. This one right here has all the potential of being that one. Please put some measurable and enforceable codes, sound codes, in place around these type of businesses before we continue to let them pop up all over the city, especially in high densely populated areas like this one. Thank you.
Ms. Reagan Ellis.
I believe that you all got handout packets. The last board meeting that we were supposed to attend, we were told that we were not able to access PowerPoint presentations. So I went ahead and printed the slides that I'll be referring to. This is what the slide presentation looks like. If you guys want to follow along with me as I go through my presentation, that would be great. Good evening. I would like to thank the Board of Directors, the Mayor, and the entire staff for your time today, but more importantly, your patience throughout this entire process. I'm very excited to finally be able to present my plans for my dream business to you and to answer any questions that you might have. This is a needed business. Currently, there are other dog daycares, as Mr. Bradley actually just told you, in the city. But if you are a pet owner, you're probably aware of the fact that it can be near impossible to get a grooming appointment, to get a boarding slot or a grooming appointment. Grooming appointments have to be booked out at least weeks to months in advance, as it is right now. Additionally, there are dog daycares in the city that have just recently stopped taking new clients for boarding and daycare because they are simply too full. Dog ownership continues to grow year after year. If you'll look at slide 1, you'll see that 53% of American households own dogs. 69% of Arkansans are pet owners. Industry revenue has grown at an annualized rate of 4.3% to $9.2 billion over the last 5 years. This number is expected to grow to $117 billion by the end of 2021. During COVID-19, we saw a huge surge in pet ownership. Why? Because they are companions. Dogs have become people's family members. For those who don't have children, can't have children, or simply can't afford to have children yet, many people are choosing to have pets over children, especially millennials. There was a need for this business before COVID, and it certainly is needed even more as we move toward a post-COVID hope of getting back to whatever our new sense of normal may be. With everyone that adopted dogs during COVID, it is inevitable that some of the people will need to utilize this type of service as they start to return to work. I would first like to explain to the board that this was not some sporadic decision I came to in wanting to open a dog daycare. I'm a dog person. I always have been, and I always will be. Ever since I was a little girl, I've brought home every stray animal that I've ever found to give it a home or find one for it. About 10 years ago, I began using a dog daycare service. I have a demanding work schedule where I work 60 to 80 hours per week, and I'm gone overnight at least once and oftentimes twice per week. I am single and I don't have any children. My children are my fur babies. There's absolutely no way that I could have been able to have the successful career that I have and do my job while being a pet owner if it weren't for this type of business. Over the years, I started to dream of owning my own dog daycare. I've had a 20-year successful sales career, and I have the education and the experience to open my own business. I'd like to combine my love of animals with my passion of rescue. I saved money for a very long time, and I began looking for property about 3 years ago. During COVID, I began driving around Little Rock for properties to buy. Commercial real estate is very expensive, as you all are well aware. One day, driving home from work, I saw that there was going to be an auction for the property that I ended up purchasing at 7820 Cantrell Road. The property was perfect. 1,500 square feet of office space, 2,500 square foot warehouse, all sitting on almost an acre of land, right off of Cantrell Road, right next to a vet clinic who also does boarding, grooming, and has an outside area for dogs. How convenient to find a property next to a vet clinic.
It's a great opportunity to refer business to one another and to have them right next door in case of an emergency. I would also like the board to note that at the time of auction, also the evening before, I was able to speak to the auctioneer, and he told me that this property was zoned correctly. He also told me that the vet next door had actually drawn up plans for this particular property to do the same sort of business that I am trying to do. After the vet drew up the plans, they then decided that they were too close to retirement and did not want to take on another business and decided to pass on it. I honestly thought the stars had aligned and I had found the perfect place for my business. I went to the auction and I purchased the property. Out of the several people that participated in the auction, Mr. Reynolds, who spoke in opposition at the Planning Commission last time, was the person that I ended up bidding at the end with during the auction. I purchased the property and I closed on the property in November. On slides 2 and 3, you can see the former use of the property. It was the Calander Construction Company. It closed in 2017 after the owner was charged with 3 counts of major fraud against the United States and 24 counts of wire fraud. Federal agents executed a search at the site pursuant to a warrant on August 19th, 2015. You can flip through slides 2 and 3 and show the current state and how the property was used throughout the years that Calander was there. Next, I'd like to tell you a little bit about the neighborhood. Bellevue Animal Clinic and Goodyear Tire Center share a parking lot with me. That does not mean that I intend on sharing parking as Miss Reynolds took it upon herself to tell Mr. Robinson, who owns the tire center, which I will get to later. But it means that our parking areas are literally connected by pavement. I have Moore Robinson in front of me and Bellevue next to me. This strip of commercial businesses sit on Cantrell Road, which carries up to 54,000 vehicles daily, making it the busiest non-interstate road in Arkansas. Ms. Reynolds repeatedly claims that my flyer that I used was a scare tactic and that it was misleading. On page 5, you'll see a portion of the current permitted uses that I used in my flyer that she is referring to. I'd like to show you on slide 5 a list of the current permitted uses for C3. I cited the Little Rock City Code section 36301, so if there were any questions, one could find the information themselves. This was not a scare tactic, nor was it meant to mislead anyone. It was simply to inform the neighbors. As you can see, some of the uses that are currently permitted in C3, which my property is, can include an animal clinic, a bar, lounge, or a tavern, a gas station, a restaurant, a medical marijuana dispensary, a hospital, food truck park, and many more. Slide 6 brings us to the Planning Commission meeting. On March 11th, 2021, we went before the Planning Commission. The staff recommended approval for my project prior to the Planning Commission meeting. We received 5 yes votes. We needed 6. There were 3 main issues and concerns that were brought before us: noise, traffic, and property value. We have 3 experts here today to discuss each one of these issues. Before we do that, I'd like to tell you a little bit about my plans for the property. On page 7, you can see my plans for development. This is an outside rendering of what the property and my building will look like after I complete renovation. If you want to turn back just quickly, because we don't have a PowerPoint presentation, on page 5, that is a current look of what current picture of what the building looks like itself now, as is. And back to page 7, this is what it will look like once I've completed renovations on the building. Slide 8 shows a rendering of the outside area. It shows the indoor play area. For the dogs, it shows the outside play area for the dogs. It shows my boarding area, and it also shows my office spaces. On slide 9, you can see that there's a maintained lot that's 19,000 square feet that will be undeveloped to serve as a buffer between the play area and the residential properties directly to the east of me. This will also allow us to contain the dogs in the 30-foot drop in elevation space on the property itself. And I've also highlighted that in blue there if you want, so you can see the undeveloped space that we will leave. On slide 10, this shows you the newly constructed indoor area. The top picture on slide 10 shows the structure that remains there, and the one on the bottom of the page shows the indoor play area that I'm going to build for the dogs. If you own dogs, and even if you don't own dogs, you probably know or could guess that dogs spend as much as 50% of their day asleep, 30% awake but relaxing, and just 20% being active. This indoor play area will serve as an area for the dogs to play in and rest in and be rotated in and out throughout the property during the day. On page 11, you can see there's a picture of the sound absorbing fence that after meeting with my sound engineer and doing testing, I decided that I would like to put in place to help the concerns of the residents in the Foxcroft area. This type of fence is approved by the Arkansas Department of Highway and Transportation and can be found installed on the north side of I-630 at Midtown, University Avenue, and running to the overpass of I-630 in Mississippi and Rodney Parham Road. Just so you know, this isn't a cheap fence. It will cost me about $45,000 to install to satisfy the concerns of the residents. On page 12, our drainage system that we will be used once the development is done. I have my civil engineer here that can speak more to that if you would have any questions about that later. On slide 13, we show the outdoor play area. As you can see, there are different compartments and different fences that will separate the dogs outside. Again, while the dogs are outside, they'll always be attended by humans. They will all be separated according to size, temperament, and breed. And there will be visually screened there will be visual screens on the fence so that they can't see each other throughout the different play areas, and that will also help to deter the barking. Slide 14 shows the self-wash stations that I would like to include in my lobby to give the customers in the area and the neighborhood and throughout the city the option to come in and do self-bathing instead of waiting for a grooming appointment if they feel the need to do so. On slide 15 is a unique option that I am bringing to Little Rock. It's a slumber party room. It's a kennel-free boarding option. This type of option has been very successful in large major cities. There are some in Northwest Arkansas as well that do this. Basically, it emulates a home environment for the animals. It will be limited to a small group of dogs, about 10, that all get along. It will be attended by staff overnight, and it's a comfortable alternative to the kennels. Like I said, Bark Avenue will offer boarding, grooming, daycare, training, self-wash stations, and kennel-free options. My plan for my business includes 30 kennels with an average of about 15 to 20 dogs at daycare per day. As you can see, I was very excited about my plans. I was set to go before the Planning Commission in February. When we heard that there were concerns from neighbors, we deferred the meeting until the new date that was given to us in March. We used that time to meet with Ms. Reynolds, who also spoke against me in opposition at the meeting. After meeting with Robin to address her concerns and the concerns that she had voiced to her, she agreed to let the people that she had taken her petition to and that were concerned to know that I was having an open house for the neighbors. I also called Mr. Reynolds. Mr. Reynolds bought the property directly to the north of me at a later auction and closed on that property in December. When I called Mr. Reynolds to ask him what his plans for the property were, he told me that he intended to build an apartment complex there and he would now be opposing me in my meeting with the Planning Commission. Even though Mr. Reynolds stated to the Planning Commission that he was not aware of what I was going to do with the property, I would like the board of directors to know that he did. He was told the day of the auction. I told him during a phone conversation that I had with him when I called him. Additionally, he was notified by certified mail. We hosted an open house and 4 people came. Mr. Reynolds did not come, Ms. Reynolds did not come, and neither did Mr. Bradley, who expressed his concern with the danger of increased traffic and who just went before me and now has a different concern. At the Planning Commission meeting, I did not know that I needed petitions of support to open a business. Honestly, I'm new to this and I had no idea how the process worked, but I did listen and I learned. I honestly don't blame the Planning Commission for the way that they voted. I would have probably done the same thing if only support for one side was shown. On page 16, you can see the flyer that Miss Reynolds stuffed mailboxes with that gave her opinions about noise, falsely stating as a written fact that my proposed business will negatively impact surrounding homes and businesses and decrease property values, all without any proof. Of course, people are likely to sign a petition against a business if they were told that their property value would decrease. I probably would. On page 17, we get to the support. So, since the Planning Commission, I want to tell you what I have done. I went door to door over the next 5 weekends. I distributed 500 flyers, invitations, and door hangers. I went door to door and I talked to people. What I found really excited me. I talked to several people that had signed her petition who weren't giving all of the facts beforehand, and they apologized, and when we left them, they were excited about our proposed business. Several people that I talked to that had signed her petition, after they talked to us and they were happy that we were coming to the neighborhood, were scared that they would be bullied if they spoke out in favor of us. Those were their words, not mine. I also tried to join the Facebook Foxcroft page, and I was denied over and over again. What I did find was there was lots of interest and lots of excitement. On page 17, I'd like to go over some of the support that I garnered as I went door to door. I know Mrs. Reynolds was very upset and very concerned that the opposition was not noted, but I assure Ms. Reynolds and the board that it was noted by the Planning Commission and myself, and we're going to talk a little bit about it. I got 431 signatures of support compared to her 192. I know that she and Mr. Bradley will tell you that they received hundreds of emails, phone calls, and letters. But when I asked for the data and it was sent to me, and it was all recorded, they all had it on file and the Planning Commission did send it. I started to extrapolate the data, and what I found was there were several instances in which homes had a husband, a wife, and another family member sign, plus the husband and wife each wrote a letter. These were counted as 4 grievances. So what I did is I broke it down by households, just to be fair. I don't want a person that lives in house A who only has one person that lives in the house to have more of a say-so than house B that has 3 people that lives in their household. So breaking it down by households, you can see that we have 396 households in support of Bark Avenue compared to her 137 that are opposed. I even went a little bit further and I broke it down for you in the graph below. I broke it out by less than 1,000 feet, 1,000 to 2,000 feet, and over 2,000 feet away. As you can see in the less than 1,000 feet away, we have 73 supportive signatures compared to her 51. If you go 1,000 to 2,000 feet, we have 99 supportive signatures compared to her 60. If you break it down even more and go out to 2,000 feet, we have 224 signatures compared to her 26. The number of households outside the 2,000 feet are important to note because these are potential customers. These are also areas that Robin said would be affected by the barking when she presented to the Planning Commission. So I think that they're fair to include in this presentation. On page 18, you can see that we've had letters of support, and you guys also have a copy of our petitions, signed petitions, and letters of support in another presentation binder in front of you. I'd now like to get to the local businesses that are in support since Mrs. Reynolds told the neighborhood and the people that signed her petition that I would be a negative impact to the businesses around. Cantrell Gardens, Moore Robinson, Tzatziki's, Fashion Nail, Citizens Bank, and many others, just to name a few, are all in support of us. I will tell you that I was quite horrified to find that Mr. Ron Robinson was told by Miss Reynolds that I stated at the Planning Commission meeting that he would be sharing parking with me. That is simply not true and frankly caused me to question my own sanity. So I went back and I watched the meeting. I said at about 1 hour and 29 minutes into the presentation and into the meeting that I share a parking lot with Moore Robinson. I do. They are the same piece of pavement. I never once said that I was going to utilize their parking. I would like to thank Mrs. Reynolds or Miss Reynolds though, because it gave me the opportunity to call Travis Robinson, Ron Robinson's son. Travis Robinson had met with us a couple of months ago, and he is fully supportive of us and our venture next door. I asked him to please apologize to his father for being misled and dragged into the situation. He hung up the phone with me, called Mr. Robinson, and Mr. Robinson then called to apologize for signing a statement that Miss Reynolds had someone take to him. We ended the phone call with Mr. Robinson's full support. On page 20, 21, and 22, I'd like to show you the flyers, the invitations, and the door hangers that were given to area residents. I also included those that had signed the opposition and that did not attend the first open house. Out of all the 500 flyers that I passed out door to door, we had on our open house on May 24th, we had 5 people show up. Still not a great turnout. I've tried in every way I know how to reach the neighbors. We have 3 experts today here to talk about the issues that were brought up. Alex McIntosh was supposed to be here to talk about the property valuation study since Ms. Reynolds said that I was going to devalue the property in the neighborhood. But Alex is on COVID quarantine and has sent his information to my lawyer, Robbie, that she will give to you. Wayne Ritchie, the sound engineer, and Randy, I can't read my own handwriting, I'm sorry. Tolbert will be our traffic engineer standing in for Ernie Peters because Ernie had a conflict and could not make it tonight.
Ms. Ellis, did she sign up? What's your name, ma'am?
Robbie Rosenbaum.
You are next up, but I do want to share, I want to make sure that the applicant got a chance to really go through a thorough process. I know you're a part of that team, but I am going to invoke, because we have 15-4, item number 12, and we have 5 against item number 12. And I'm now going to invoke our 15-minute rule for and against. So you'll still go for it. But we do.
Point of order, Mayor.
Yes.
That requires a vote of this board to invoke that.
Is, Mr. Parliamentarian? I believe it's the chairman's privilege, but that's always been the case. That's something new to me if it's not.
Mayor, the procedures of the board are set by the board. If there's a challenge to what you've done, they can challenge the ruling of the chair.
City Attorney, we can't hear you.
Oh. The board is free to set its own rules. A challenge to the ruling of the chair can be subjected to a vote.
So is there a challenge to the ruling chair? Is there a challenge to the ruling of the chair?
Yes.
No, ma'am, you can't challenge. It's okay, I
I
understand.
thought you were looking at me.
I try to look at everyone out in the audience. Is there a challenge to the ruling of the chair? Thank you so much. We'll invoke our 15-minute rule for and against. Ms. Robbie? Ms. Rosenbaum?
First thing, I just want to display the support that we have here. So if you are here in the audience and you are in support of this item, would you please stand? Thank you. To save time, I want to say that I have looked over the property valuation study done by Mr. McIntosh, and it is included in one of the packets that you have in front of you. To summarize it in the fastest way I know how, Mr. McIntosh took 50 sales and resales that happened in the last 20 years. That means that there was one sale and then another sale that both happened within the last 20 years. He took these data points from different neighborhoods in Little Rock that have doggy daycares. The one that I will highlight is the neighborhood around Pound's Lounge in Riverdale. His data shows that on average, the annual increase in property value for the houses in that neighborhood, it increased by an average of about 3.4 to 4.7% per year. Now, keep in mind, there is a doggy daycare in that neighborhood. To compare that, his data points from the Foxcroft neighborhood, which does not have a doggy daycare right now, shows an average increase of about 3.9% per year. So we're looking at a range 3.4 to 4.7 per year with a doggy daycare, and then 3.9% without a doggy daycare. What his data show is that there's no real impact on the property values when you add a doggy daycare into the neighborhood. In the interest of time, that's all I'm going to say, unless any of the board members have any questions about that property valuation.
Thank you, Ms. Rosenbaum.
And then we would like to have Mr. Wayne Ritchie come up next. He will talk about the sound test.
Mr. Ricky?
Can everybody hear me okay?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, sometime with these masks, it's just, I don't know if you're blaring out or nobody can hear you at all. Ladies and gentlemen of the board, mayor, vice mayor, staff, I want to thank you for this opportunity to speak and to summarize my previous report. Mr. Bradley went first, and I'm glad that he did because it proves that he did read my report, and I appreciate that. And he called out on page 3, me using the word boarding instead of doggy daycare. Well, I just looked up my old trusted Google, and if you look up boarding, you'll find Hounds Lounge Pet Resort, Kennel Holdings, Paws Park, Chenal Pet Palace, Pinnacle Pet Lodge. He goes on and on and on. So that's the reason I use the word boarding there instead of grooming or doggy daycare, or instead of doggy daycare, because that's what I guess the industry really uses it for. I've heard 50 barking dogs, and if you want to hear 50 tonight, I've got them on this little guy right here. It's a digital recorder, and it can get pretty loud on a loud sound system. And believe me, the plan for Bark Avenue is not to have all 50 dogs outside at one time. That is not the business plan. I don't think never has been, never was. So the comments about all the dogs about one side barking, that is not true. I've also heard a fire truck siren, and I do believe that is maybe 120 decibels. I've also heard a loud rock concert, and a loud rock concert will be between 100 and 110. And I've never heard a dog or a pack of dogs louder than Van Halen 1984. I guarantee you that. So I got to give the edge to the rock concert on that one. And city, there's already, ordinances, Little Rock Ordinance 6-18 is already on the books for dealing with barking, excessive barking. And it may be a procedure that you have to go to, but I don't think that we are in any position to ask the board to rewrite city ordinances or rewrite laws to accommodate us. They're already on there. We just need to follow them. And then without knowing anything about Miss Ellis and what her intentions are, I may have the same position as the ones who may be opposing her. I hope to ease many of these concerns today. Sound or noise is measured in decibels. I think we all know that. The higher the number, the louder the sound. 78.6 decibels, 74.6, and 74.8 decibels are the sound pressure levels I measured outside the Exxon on Cantrell and Keatley, Fire Department number 12, and Casa Manana, both on Cantrell Road. All three are located in the general area of Miss Ellis's proposed business and are approved with the current zoning area. All these readings were taken yesterday. During a sound test, I measured up to 60 decibels at the back of Miss Ellis's property and 54.6 decibels out front. Both measurements were significantly below the properties I previously mentioned. If I understand correctly, there's a car wash that's also planned for the cleared space across the street from McDonald's on Cantrell Road. The Zips Car Wash on South Shackelford Road measured 87.5 decibels yesterday. I measured the sound level outside of Hounds Lounge on Bowman Road yesterday when dogs were present. The sound level was 72.3 decibels. Again, lower than the two businesses and the fire department. In my previous report, I outlined a sound test, which was conducted May 3rd. There were actually 3 tests done on site to help assure me and Ms. Ellis that sound could be contained, both internally and externally. These sound tests were similar to the tests I performed at the original Hounds Lounge in 2016. Ms. Ellis's building is constructed of concrete block, which is one of the best materials in existence today for sound containment. Insulation and sound panels will be installed internally for further sound containment. I understand that the main concern will be the external sound containment. Intake and registration for all dogs will be on the north side of our building, and that's facing the Goodyear. That's the furthest from any residential areas, and should be the same noise level as Bellevue Animal Clinic, which is a very low 59.9 decibels. In my recommendation, Ms. Ellis plans to install over 3,600 square feet of externally sound absorbing flooring, and that's more than just AstroTurf, in the dog play area. This material will help in absorbing sound and reducing sound waves reflected to neighboring properties. Ms. Ellis also plans to install an 8-foot wood fence with sound absorbing panels attached around the entire area where the dogs will be kept outside and the residential areas adjacent to her property. Hounds Lounge and Chenal Pet Palace have wood fences as low as 6 feet and do not have any sound absorbing panels attached. I went to all locations and physically checked them out. She also plans to install echo sound barriers at the rear of the inside walls of any out parcel building that face the residential areas of her property. And as she just so mentioned, these sound panels will be found, you can find them right now on Midtown 630, the north side of 630 in Rodney Perrin, Mississippi. And I've talked to people that live in those areas, and they didn't believe that those sound panels would cut down the freeway traffic, but they do. And at the expense that they cost, they definitely should. So there's all this, talk about containment externally. That's what she's doing, and that's more than any other doggy daycare that I've seen in the city in existence already. Studies have shown that these panels can lower sound approximately by 10 to 20 decibels, and it's like I said, it's tremendous expense to Ms. Ellis. And also notice that the Arkansas Highway and Transportation Department has already approved these panels. So this is something that the board doesn't have to go in blind. The neighbors don't have to go in blind. They passed the test for the Arkansas Highway and Transportation Department. And I'd say that's a pretty good litmus test. My qualifications to perform these sound studies and recommendations span a career of more than 41 years in audio engineering. I've designed sound systems and performed audio engineering studies ranging from the Sultan of Brunei, Steven Spielberg, locally, Wildwood Performing Arts Center. Based on extensive sound studies that we performed on site for Ms. Ellis, the current laws and the city ordinances that already exist on barking and howling, and her desire to include my recommendations for the benefit of all of her neighbors, it is my professional opinion that this facility will not harm the peaceful and quiet enjoyment of her neighbors. Ladies and gentlemen, again, I appreciate your time, consideration, and hopefully approval for Ms. Ellis's project. Thank you. Do you have any questions while I'm up here?
I do want to let you know there's 6 minutes left for 4. And so we have next up Mr. Randy Tolbert, unless you want to continue to talk. And
I'm good. If you guys have any questions, you know where to find me.
Mr. Randy Tolbert.
Ask you if you would like us to go over our traffic report since you guys ordered one yourself, or in the essence of time, would you like me to go ahead with our other?
You are the applicant. If you want to
Okay.
go in front of Mr. Tolbert?
No, sir. I was just going to say if you guys cared to hear, since you guys had a traffic study done as well. I didn't know if you.
Mr. Tolbert?
Yes, sir. Good evening, Mayor and Board of Directors. I appreciate it taking the time to listen to us. I'm going to be very quick because Mr. Peters in the last Board of Directors meeting pretty much explained well the traffic study that we did. And we did do a traffic assessment for the proposed land use. And most of the trips are expected to occur from home to work, and then in the evening from work to home. That'll be the biggest peak times that will occur here. However, this land use is expected to be a very low traffic generator, vehicular traffic. And based on our traffic assessment of both existing and projected conditions, it was concluded that ingress and egress to the site will continue to function well with the development as proposed. And as y'all know, at the last meeting, the city wanted to have an independent traffic study done They have since finished that, and their findings and results are almost identical to ours. We've got some slight differences, but the results, they concluded that it's expected to remain satisfactory in that area as well with minimal impact. And I can answer questions if you'd like.
There's 4 minutes left. I was going to go on with Mr. Daniel Bryan, if Mr. Bryan wanted to speak.
Thank y'all.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. My name is Daniel Bryant. I live at 209 North Woodrow Street. I appreciate you guys giving me the opportunity to speak on behalf of this applicant. I have experience with zoning conflicts and have found them ultimately to be more about the people involved than the uses. In this case, I can speak favorably about both. I think the applicant is a capable person who will address the concerns, and this applicant has many levers that they can pull to mitigate any issues. I don't believe that upsetting the neighbors is good business. In addition, I currently lease to a dog, either the mask or the glasses. It's a tough choice. I can barely see with these things fogging up. The applicant has many levers they can pull, as I said, and I have, I currently lease to a dog groomer, and I've not had any problems. My office is on that floor. There's about a dozen dogs in there at one time, and the barking's not been a problem. I've not had any issues on property around that building that I'm talking about. We haven't any problem leasing those spaces or had any value issues there either. I believe that any individuals that buy property next to a robust zoned commercial district or a thoroughfare as busy as Cantrell should have an expectation that there should be a likelihood that they'll have to interface with business at some point. This property is not surrounded by houses, as it was stated by some in opposition. That is on one side, and Cantrell is on the other. My opinion that if this applicant is not successful, that apartments are the next logical step, and of course that would bring their own traffic and noise concerns. I'd also like to close the fact that I've known Reagan Ellis for 20 years, as have my wife. I believe she'll do what's necessary to eventually win over these neighbors. And also, it's equally as important, I believe that Little Rock needs smart, young, aspiring entrepreneurs, especially those who are female and from minority groups. We all know these groups are underrepresented, and opportunities to empower such people should not be taken for granted. Thanks again. I'll yield the rest of the time.
Alexis Leety, and you have, well, you got 60 seconds. That's just how much time is.
Evening. My name is Alexis Leidy. I'm a resident of Little Rock, and I'm here tonight to support the application for a zoning variance by Bark Avenue. I have been an active volunteer for the Humane Society of Pulaski County for over 20 years, and I have served on the board of directors for the Humane Society of Pulaski County for 7 years now. I have also known Miss Reagan Ellis for over 20 years, and she has been a dedicated supporter of the Humane Society of Pulaski County for many years. Oh, sorry. Reagan and I, of course, we're huge animal lovers, but we are also both committed to supporting the mission of the Humane Society to rescue, rehabilitate, and find loving homes for the so many animals in need in our community. I know that Reagan will ensure that all animals at Bark Avenue are provided top-notch care at her facility, and I also know that she will be a responsible business owner that will ensure there will be no adverse impacts to the surrounding neighborhood. Furthermore, I know how important giving back is to Reagan, and I am confident that Bark Avenue will be committed to charitable giving and supporting local rescue organizations like the Humane Society by sponsoring and promoting fundraising events, fostering dogs in need, and promoting adoptable dogs. In closing, I urge you to vote yes to approve the zoning variance because Bark Avenue will not only be an excellent daycare, grooming, and boarding facility that will provide exceptional care and an enriching experience for their clients, but it will also serve our community in a meaningful way. Thank you so much for the opportunity to speak tonight.
Thank you, Ms. Lighty. We'll now move to the against. Chad Murray.
Hello, Mayor and Board. I have a few things to pass out. If someone could help and distribute these, please. Some things, some new information that you could reference. And I'll go ahead and start while you're getting that. We're not going to get to that for just a minute. My name's Chad Murray. I both live and work in close proximity to this location at 7820 Cancel Road. My office is 60 feet away from the proposed outdoor play area where 50 dogs will be allowed to roam outside. My house is 750 feet away from this property. So I'd like to thank you guys for listening to my concerns tonight. I'd also like to state for the record that I think that the applicant has a great business idea, and I think that she has the passion, enthusiasm, and wherewithal to make it very successful. My concern is that I don't think it belongs in our neighborhood. I would also like to state for the record that I love the support that Ms. Ellis has here tonight. For the record, we asked the people in our neighborhood not to come in person tonight due to the recent COVID outbreaks and the surge we're experiencing.
Let's be respectful, everyone.
Yes, please do. I'm going to try to keep my tone a little bit very respectful. Before I move on as well, I'd like to say for the record, Ms. Reynolds is not the villain here. Ms. Reynolds is a concerned citizen. She's my friend. She's worked tirelessly. She does not believe that this belongs in our neighborhood. And I wish we could all just kind of, listen to others' opinions. Before I get started, I want to clarify one thing Ms. Ellis just said. She said that the vet next door has a location and they have an outdoor play area for their dogs. That's not the case. There's a small area that those dogs get to go out from time to time and get a little fresh air. I know because my office is right there and I see it. There might be 2 dogs at one time if they get along, but usually it's 1 dog at a time. So my concerns are centered around how close this proposed location is to the nearby residents and the existing business. So in the packets that each of you have, there's some additional information, letters, and petitions that are in opposition to this special use permit. Please note that you should already have received over 200 petitions opposing the special use permit from nearby residents. The people that we asked to sign these petitions were people that lived in close proximity to this location. I've seen some of the petitions that Ms. Ellis submitted, and there's a large number of people who don't even live in Little Rock that are on there, or especially not even close to the neighborhood. We've also submitted letters from 3 nearby condominium associations that total 84 units. You can see all of that on the information I've got marked on the first page. The people who live and work nearby do not want the noise and the health hazard that this business will bring. So just a couple little points of reference. I've marked on here on this first page 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. All right. So number 1, that's my office. So Mayor, that's the distance from you to the camera right here. Number 2, that's Don Carroll's home. His home is a difference from you, Mayor, to the screen that you're seeing right here. Number 3 and number 4, that's a duplex, triplex. I'm not really sure how that's coded. Number 4 are apartments that have 6 units. And that distance, Mayor, is from you to the back of the room. So as we're talking about this, imagine that we have up to 50 dogs at the back of the room barking. Now, granted, there's a fence there, but we've got 50 dogs barking, okay? So let's talk a little bit about common sense. So we don't have a team of professionals. We didn't have a big group of people that we were able to pay. So we're going to talk a little bit about common sense. The sound study says that noise won't be a factor. I'm sure that they have things they can do to mitigate some of the noise here. But common sense would say that if 50 dogs are barking in the back of this room, it's going to be a bother to us. Common sense would say if I live here at this screen and 50 dogs are barking where the mayor is, that's going to be a bother to the person who lives there. Common sense says that if I work where the camera is and 50 dogs are barking where the mayor is located, that's going to interrupt business operations. These dog kennels are very loud. If you've ever been near one of these businesses, I don't think you'd want to live or work nearby one of these. I'd also like to state, I'm going to skip over because Mr. Bradley hit some of this stuff. We also heard earlier from a real estate appraiser that states that there will be no impact to nearby home values with 50 dogs barking outside every day. Let's have a little common sense moment here once again, please. If I have a home and I'm trying to sell it, it's going to be easier to sell and I'm probably going to get more money if there are not 50 dogs barking in the back of the room. If 50 dogs are barking in the back of the room, common sense would say, I don't know, I haven't done this myself, it's probably going to be harder to sell that home, and I'm probably not going to get the money I would get for that home if I didn't have the dogs barking there. Go back to page 1, please. So from what I've distributed, you can see from page 1, you can see our building. That's number 1, where the red area is. So included in this packet, I have 17 signatures from the tenants in this building that I work in who state that they will not be able to continue normal business operations due to the noise pollution and will have to relocate their operations. These businesses will have to move. They can no longer operate in this neighborhood. In my building, the one I work in, it has numerous massage therapists, mental health providers, and a doctor's office. Over 75% of the tenants are made up of these types of businesses, and they require peace and a tranquil environment. What about the owner of the building who makes a living leasing office space to all of us? What will he do? What kind of businesses are going to be able to move in and operate in an environment as noisy as this? Once again, isn't the city supposed to protect its residents and the existing businesses? Didn't the city attempt to protect the residences and business tenants when they zoned the area C3 so that the neighborhood could be developed and it could flourish? We didn't put all kinds of businesses that would be destructive or harmful. We're not here challenging a business that would meet the C3 classifications. We're challenging a special use permit that is going to damage our neighborhood. It's going to have a negative impact on the existing businesses and the people who live close nearby. I've also included, this is the last part of it, I've also included in my packet letters from the neighbors that live the closest to this facility. Please see number 2 where I've circled. You can actually see the red line from this proposed location property line actually goes through this individual's home. That's how close it is. That's from you, Mayor, to the screen. This home is owned by Don Carroll. Or Mr. Carroll lives there. I'm not sure if he's the actual owner, who's a devoted dog lover. And he's going to live 15, maybe 20 feet away from the outdoor play area.
Mr. Mayor, I just want to let you know that Against has 7 minutes left, and so if you want some other folks to have a chance.
Yes, sir. Thank you. I'm going to wrap it at 30 seconds. Mr. Carroll is certainly concerned about the noise. I've also included some letters from the nearby residents, in addition to Mr. Carroll, in the apartments. The last one is of particular concern. It is from a resident who states that he's in poor health and sleeps a lot during the day. I guess he's going to be out of luck if this special use permit is approved, and he'll have to find a place to move. I'm certain that we have other people in our neighborhood who also suffer from health issues, and these barking dogs all day long are going to be a tremendous disturbance. Thank you for your time.
Robin Reynolds, and thank you, Mr. Murray. Robin Reynolds. And Ms. Robin, as you approach the 5-minute mark, I'll let you know just in case you want to let someone else.
Okay. Let me put my glasses on so I can see. Mayor Scott, Vice Mayor Hines, and city directors. As Michelle Obama said, when they go low, I'm going to stay high. So many things that you have heard about me, that you've read about me, are simply not true. You know who I am, and I'm very concerned about the ordinance that is before you tonight. Why? Because it has no restrictions. I actually emailed Miss Ellis on Friday because during my time as president of the Little Rock School Board, we negotiated a deal. I know how to get to yes with people. When the late John Walker, Bill Hamilton, not the late Skip Rutherford, and I got together and talked, we want to win for our city. I want to win for my city tonight. I've spent months reviewing past zoning requests for similar facilities. And as Ms. Ellis said, this is a fast-growing industry, but this fast-growing industry has no regulations. The number one reason, that's it, no regulations. I've read every zoning application since 1999 that has to do with pets. And sometimes the applicant, or I'm going to say the people that get them, they follow the rules. Sometimes they don't. Let's think about how we together as a city could win tonight. I think there could be an ordinance written that would contain some safeguards that we could work together. Buffer zones. We've talked a lot about buffer zones in this city. Why can't we have equal buffer zones for all outside play areas that this park has? We talk about them to the north, but no, we talk about them to the east, but we don't talk about them to the north. Enable sound ordinances. I've looked all around the country for effective sound measures. Denver has a perfect example. They have certain sound levels and decibels that are allowable in cities.
You've hit the 5-minute mark, just in case you want to.
I think we can win together. That's what I believe in. But we have got to have a restriction in the ordinance that will protect the neighborhood. Thank you.
Mr. John Mallory. Thank you, Ms. Reynolds. Mr. John Mallory.
Yes, Mayor. And I have some handouts to distribute to the board if somebody could present these. I think I made enough copies. I just want to make it clear, I realize that there's a group of people sitting behind me that I think are nay voters, but not necessarily associated with them. I'm just somebody in the neighborhood and figured it out. So I regret that we only have 15 minutes as nay speakers. I worked quite some time on this, and probably had half an hour presentation myself, but it is what it is. I live on Foxcroft Road. I'm sure if you look here on the first page, this was the area zoning map attached to the agenda. So I just printed it out and want to make sure you had it in front of you. If you look at the northernmost house on Foxcroft, that's me. I'm a millennial. I have dogs. I also have kids. I chose to have kids. I heard the millennial term used earlier. I have a 3.5-year-old and a 4-week-old. I constantly have concerns about my 3.5-year-old in the front yard due to traffic, both north and southbound on Foxcroft. The sound arguments about noise that were made tonight, you've heard a lot about that. I'm not going to belabor that point. I would like to point out, though, there is somewhat hypocritical stance that could be taken here with the rezoning, where you have residential property that, based off of municipal code 6-15, the residential property bordering this facility is limited by law to 4 dogs. However, this rezoning, you're going to allow somebody to have 50 dogs. Sound-wise, intuitively, it's very clear to understand why we have a 4-dog policy for houses, and I think that sound argument is very intuitive. Let's talk about traffic. The traffic study performed by the city is flawed, is a flawed study. Please look at, I'm sure you all reviewed it prior to this meeting. there was actually an amendment to that traffic study that was provided. That was when I contacted traffic engineering and pointed out an issue, an inaccuracy with their report. Paragraph 3 under intersection capacity, discussing the very odd intersection controlled by both the state highway department and the city. So it's a very governmentally speaking odd thing for both parties to address. It was corrected to point out that 30% of the traffic turning right off of W Street will go north on Foxcroft. It originally said south. North is heading toward my house. It's heading toward the top of the zoning map. That leaves 70% that the traffic study then describes as going to either turn left or right at Cantrell. That is an impossibility. I'm not an engineer. If you will turn to the second page of the packet I described to you, this is the best way I can demonstrate it. Put your finger on W Street and try and turn right on Cantrell. The two medians that are there do not permit a legal turn. The top of the queue, if you are southbound on Foxcroft, only permits room for one car at the top of the queue. So you're now looking at, quote, 70% of the traffic that's going to attempt to turn left off of W Street so it can make a left turn off of Foxcroft. That's not going to happen if there's one person in the queue. That means that 95+% of the traffic is going to be traveling northbound on Foxcroft. There are 3 legal, non-private pieces of property to turn around. That is Fox Chase, Renard, and Fox Hunt. I guarantee you that you're going to have lots of U-turns, turns onto Foxcroft Village Drive, which I confirmed with the city is a private drive. The point I want to make, I know time is up, is that this business sounds great. I want to frequent this business. I don't think this is the right location for it.
You have 10 seconds.
The city needs to be prepared to address the traffic at this intersection because part of that intersection is maintained by the city, as I confirmed with the highway department.
Mr. Mallory, your time is up.
Thank you.
We've now had 15 minutes for, 15 minutes against. We invoke that rule after having considerable time initially with the against with Mr. Bradley and Ms. Reagan earlier. Then we invoked the time of 15 minutes for, 15 minutes against. Everyone has gotten a chance to speak except for, I do want to not acknowledge because after the time limit, I do want to acknowledge Mary Thomas was next up to speak against. So we do acknowledge you, Ms. Thomas. Next, now, Director, what? No, I'm not asking you to come speak. Director Webb.
Mr. Mayor, could I ask Director Collins a couple of questions?
Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you. And first of all, I just want to say we've had sound studies, traffic studies, petitions. This has been one of the most contentious issues that I've dealt with in all of my years on the board. I've met with both groups, talked to you multiple times. I've spent several hours outside at Hounds Lounge and walked off the distance in multiple directions to see how far I could hear. But there were some issues, and that was when the dogs were outside, but there were some issues raised. The last time I met with some of the folks who are here tonight that haven't been addressed yet. And so I wanted to bring those up and ask you about them to ensure that regardless of what happens, people feel like they got a fair shake. And one of the questions that was raised was an issue of a topography map. And one of the issues that was raised was something about ADEQ. And some waste concerns. And the topography map, part of that issue was the word shall as opposed to the word will. Well, I'm not sure what your answer is going to be. I think we also had a situation like that earlier and something with the issue of the Chick-fil-A, some of the things not being quite finished, but that we still allowed to proceed. But anyway, could you address the issue of the topography map?
Yes, Director. What that is, that was a list of items that was needed for the preliminary plan that gets presented, that goes through the Planning Commission. And the point that I made in a comments that I sent back to you is that it calls it for in the application process. Now, the process for a plan development is very fluid. It depends on what the plan development is. Plan developments has come before the Planning Commission and also before the board that is in an existing building. That is the change of use in an existing building where no development in the building or the site is done. It is just a change of use. That is the same application process that this goes before the Planning Commission and the board. So in review of all the application and the process that the use is given, we as staff determine what is being done. Other plan developments has come before the board. If we see there is major development, major cut and fills and grading of the site, we do request and is provided to us a cross-section and topography map, and we're really talking about a cross-section so that the Planning Commission and subsequent board can see what the development is. And we're looking for line of sights. You know, what is somebody adjacent to the site going to see? This development, as it is going through, it was proposed that is using the existing topography of the site. They are going to redo some of the buildings, but the existing topography and the adjacent land, the open space that is shown as being undeveloped, is not going to be touched. It's not going to be developed. Therefore, that was not a request of staff, and the topography map did not need to be presented for the Planning Commission. But since it is a process, at any given point in time, if a planning commissioner or a board of director requests it, that verbiage there allows us, city staff, to require that to be presented. It is not a may. Now, the other point that you brought up was for the, I guess, stormwater quality, ADEQ. The city of Little Rock is currently under an agreement with a joint agreement with the Arkansas Department of Transportation with ADEQ for stormwater quality. And any development within the city limits of Little Rock, we have agreed to do certain things for that requirement. And this development, when they present the plans, development plans, if approved at the board, we'll go through that same process as any other commercial development within the city for review and approval pursuant to those agreements and ordinances as adopted.
And thank you. I have one more question for you. Mr. Mallory brought up that there was an error on the traffic study, and because he was sort of running out of time, could you explain again to the board what that correction was that was made when the revised report was sent?
I believe Mr. Mike Cook could probably make that presentation a little bit better. He is here. If we could.
Thank you.
Him down here.
Hello, Director. I could. One of the corrections made on that final report, and they were both very minor, is there was some confusion about traffic, whether it's southbound or northbound on Foxcroft, and that has been corrected. And there was some clarifications too on the amount of traffic generation. We talked about numbers early on in the report, dealing with numbers projected by an Ernie Peters study. And then we concluded with our own study and used the higher numbers to conclude in the report that less than 1 car a minute at peak hour would be coming and going from the site.
Thank you.
Thank you, Director Webb. Director Richardson.
My iPad is about to go out there at my mom's house. Her charger is not working, and to prevent what happened to me during an agenda meeting, if I go out before we take the vote, my vote is yay in support. If the yays are supportive of this development, because I know this is an appeal, so I want to make sure we know what the yays and the nays are. My yay is in support of their appeal in the event that I lose power before this meeting is over. I just want that to be on record. And I want to thank you for you come in with some intentional changes you made, and I've been supportive of those. You've done a wonderful job. You've had some unintentional changes that I don't like. One of them is after 2 hours, we normally would take a break. Been meeting 2.5 hours. The second one is you've now changed how we do policy since you've been elected mayor, and the third one is you've changed how we're gonna do the land banking now. So you came in with intentional changes, and now you have some unintentional changes that's been a result of your leadership. And you know that's just a joke, but I'm voting yay in support of the applicant in the event that my power is lost when the vote is.
Thank you. Director Wright.
Mayor, I heard what I thought was a very, very good recommendation. I am very impartial here. I'm not an animal lover, period. But I don't like putting a burden on our residents when they have a complaint in the neighborhood. So if we could amend our ordinance to add some of the requirements that our staff would measure the noise and not the resident have to prove the noise. I did live next door to a barking dog, and whereas it wasn't loud, it was annoying. But she was just a bad neighbor. But I didn't hear anything that turns me totally off this application, but I did hear something that I would like to pursue, Mayor, if our staff could review our ordinance and see if we could add that in there about our staff being able to measure noise volume. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Director Hendricks.
Irma can go first.
Director Pitt. We go to
You
Director.
sure?
Yes, Director Pitt.
Are you sure, Irma? Okay, thank you. I'll be brief because this has gone on for a while. And I would just first like to say, I appreciate everybody's passion that's here because you're obviously very passionate about it. I'm sorry, I'll take my mask off. You know, this is Director Webb's territory, so I always feel a little bit weird when I kind of tiptoe into Ward 3, but I was born in Ward 3 and went to all 3 public schools in Ward 3, and so is it okay? So when this first came up, you know, I really didn't delve into exploring it, didn't know Reagan, hadn't been approached by anyone, just basically a friend of Robin's, and Robin said, they're trying to put this in the neighborhood and blah, blah, blah. And I said, well, that sounds like a horrible idea. Kind of quick to judge. And then I jumped in a little bit, did some more research, and I've changed my mind, which is going to make some people unhappy, but I think not everybody's going to be happy at the end of the evening, and I don't know how it's going to play out. There are 2 main things that I was concerned about. The current permitted uses of C3, all which could be very noisy, restaurant, I know because I have one, patio dining, a parking garage, a daycare. It's a funky little center. I know I get tires there. I used to go to Bellevue. I'm very, very familiar with it. Remember when Calander was there? And I'm sorry, I don't remember your name, but the gentleman who spoke, your office is in that building. I've been in that building probably 200 times. I know the proximity. I am also a frequent patron of various doggy daycares, so much so that I actually took it upon myself to see what sort of sound problems there were with some friends and colleagues of mine who own the restaurants down around Hounds Lounge. And I spoke to the owner of Maddie's and Buffalo Grill, and the closest one, I guess, the Faded Rose. And none of them had any complaints. They said, yeah, we might hear a barking dog when there are patrons on the patio, but it could be from the Riverdale neighborhood. So that did not seem to be a concern in that situation with Hounds Lounge. And I think that was fairly comparable. The other thing I wanted to ask about with these C3 uses on this property, again, I think that any number of them could be a problem with noise. Jamie, staff recommended this. Can you tell me the primary reason staff recommended this, please? I can't see you, but I kind of think you're there. Oh, okay. I'm sorry. The screen, Dean and I can't see who's on the other side. It could be the Wizard of Oz over
They're
there.
trying to announce that I'm here. I said, yes, I
Okay,
am.
I hear your voice. What did staff base its recommendation on?
Well, it's, the recommendation was just on the amount of, you look at the buffer area, and I understand some of the opposition was talking about the stuff to the north. Well, the property that to the north is not zoned residential. We was looking at residential zoning and the proximity to it, and just the presentation that the applicant made on their noise reduction that has to do with the boarding facility. And also, you know, they did have the kennel or the boarding inside. They had play area inside. There was an area that was outside that we looked at. And we did ask the applicant the number that was, that may be outside. The number that was thrown out there was the 50, but that was total building, you know, use of that, not necessarily being outside in the outdoor play area. So with those recommendations and with the presentation that they did to us for the noise levels, and also understanding that the nearest residences, single-family residence zoned residential was adjacent to them and had that buffer area and it was going to remain undeveloped. And also in conjunction with, as explained and presented to the board and also to the planning commission, the location of Cantrell, the number of traffic, the trips generation on Cantrell, just the general noise that is generated from the tire facility that is just to the south of them, and some other aspects. We felt that this use could be allowed, and that's when we presented them, it's a planned development. It's not a special use permit, it's a planned development. You are approving the rezoning to a planned development. So the conditions that was placed through that application process is the conditions for the zoning. Okay, so I do understand, and I heard some questions also regarding enforcement, but I can address that separately. So we recommended approval just based upon the other uses that is around the property, the land use that's on the property, the uses that are south of the property, and also the proximity of residential property zoned to the east, what we recommended it on.
Okay, thank you, Jamie. Thank you, Mayor.
Director Hendricks.
Mayor, this is really, I want to ask Attorney Carpenter. I've been around here 14 years. Tom, have we ever had this type conference before? In my 14 years. It's been real interesting.
We've had traffic reports. We've had reports on drainage. We've had questions about stormwater. I don't remember a sound report.
Okay, the reason why I asked, I wish we would spend.
Hounds Lounge.
The reason why I asked, I wish we would spend this much time on human beings. Thank you. You get my message?
Director Phillips.
Thank you, Mayor. Just quick question for Director Collins. He just mentioned something about enforcement, and I know I got some emails and some phone calls from folks that live over in the Fox Cross area concerned about how they can be assured that the conditions that are being discussed today will actually be enforced. So if you can address that for us, that'll be my only question.
Yes, I can. I do realize that some of I wasn't privy to the emails that went back and forth with Mr. Carpenter and Mr. Rourke. But if it's concerning noise in regards to commercial office properties, for us in zoning, and that's what this would be under, falls underneath Chapter 18. In Chapter 18, the nuisance codes as far as noise for an operation of a business falls underneath that criteria. That's where we go and enforce. Like if somebody had an operation that had something there that was a nuisance for our office, because that's the one that we reference within the commercial and office zoning for those uses. So we can go and enforce underneath the zoning, underneath any condition that is placed on a planned development, if that is one of them.
Thank you, Director Collins. That's all I have, Mayor.
Come on, good boy.
Make sure Director Richardson is not competing. Seeing no other questions from members of the board. Had 3 readings. We've listened to the community. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please say nay.
Aye.
Ayes have it.
Roll call.
Excuse me. Director Adcock is absent.
And technically, we did not open and close the public hearing.
We'll go back. Thank you for reminding us that. Public hearing is open. We've heard comment. Public hearing is closed. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please say nay.
Nay.
Ayes have it. Ayes have it.
Roll call.
Roll call.
Director Richardson,
Aye.
Director Webb, Director Peck,
Yes.
Director Wright,
Yes.
Director Wyrick,
Yes.
Director Compuris, Director Phillips,
Yes.
Director Adcock. No. Director Hendricks,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Hines.
Yes.
Ayes have it. We'll now go to citizens' communication. Mr. Luke Scrabble.
Good evening. Thank you for allowing me to exercise my First Amendment rights in America. As I let you know, last week, I wasn't too pleased with.
Mr. Scrabble, if you could speak into the mic, members of the board want to be able to hear you.
I said, thank you for allowing me to exercise my First Amendment rights in America. As last week, I let you know that I wasn't too pleased with the way you went about kind of railroading 6 directors into going to the polls without coming to the public first to find out how we wanted to spend our tax contributions. One of the line items that you came up with was the downtown Little Rock Ambassador Safety Program to the tune of $5,500,000 tax dollars. Now, the problem I saw with this program that you came up with, Mayor, is that you already were contributing to this program. You were given $195 million to this program already. And then in 2019, you had given $49,990. Excuse me, it wasn't 195 million, it was 195,000. In 2019, you gave a total of $219,990,000. Now, if this tax passes, annually, you would be giving $550,000. The increase per year you would be giving would be $330,000. That's a 60% increase per year for 10 years. I see this as very frivolous, Mayor. The increase per month. In 2019, you gave $49,990. If the tax passes, you're going to give $45,833,000 a month. You're going from $49,990 a year in 2019 to $45,833 a month. That's frivolous, Mayor. That's what they call in Washington.
Your time is up.
Pork belly spending. I'll be back in 2 weeks to let you know how
Thank you,
frivolous
Mr.
this is.
Favor.
It's not fair to the
Thank you, Mr.
taxpayer.
Favor. We'll now move forward. Mr. Tony Davila.
Mr. Mayor, for having me.
If you'll speak in the mics, please.
All right, can you hear me now?
Yes, sir.
I come before you and the city leaders to let you know that Youth Advisory Board Southwest is ready with programs and advice to our city leaders on how to maintain a peaceful city. We have to be sincere about how we do this in the communities. Our communities are hurting. We need programming. We have programs. We have bird programs. We have dropout programs, beautification programs. We have mural programs. We have a way how to handle the panhandling problem. We have our drone projects for the city. And we have our neighborhood festivals programs that we haven't implemented. So all what we're saying is we're ready, Mr. Mayor. If you guys need us, we're available. And I think it's time for this city to start moving in the right direction. Not going to call Little Rock Iraq, like Chicago is called Chirac. It's going to be called Iraq. All right? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Davila.
Members of the board, before we conclude tonight's agenda, if there are any questions, I think we've all had a long night. If not, I will go ahead forward and want to make the announcement. I know I shared that we'll make the announcement on targeting community development. Part of that ordinance, part of the ordinance says that the mayor would, on this particular working group, different from a board and commission, that the mayor would consult with members of the board in those particular wards on the appointees. And so after consulting with the wards 1, 2, 6, and 7 directors, After consulting these directors and identify the person who will serve in those positions on this working group, separate and apart from a board and commission. For Ward 1, Robert Webb. Ward 2, Tara Bruce. Ward 6, Tamara Faressa. Ward 7, City Director BJ Wyrick. The next 3 appointees is Dr. Anika Whitfield, Kimberly Enoch, and Adam Fogelman. There a motion to adjourn? There's motion to take. All in favor say aye. All opposed say nay. Ayes have it.
Roll call.